Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description. Deadly Drinking Pirate by Darren. Ace was wondering about that sake he stole from those pirates before allowing his little brother Luffy drink it when they became brothers. And now Luffy has gained a new ability, one that defies the laws of devil fruits and yet makes him even stronger than before. Watch this drunk-proof pirate become the king of them all. Mature Luffy duel. Devil fruit. Luffy/Harim, I don't own anything, adios.
What do we do? Luffy growled in annoyance, trying to clear out his ear with his finger. Don't shout, I am right here. The civilians stopped in their screaming. I am sure that this one is just a one-time thing. Just make sure everyone stays inland as much as possible. Once it is done, you all will have your work cut out for you. This got them all into action, hurrying to spread the word and give the warning. They were so focused that they didn't notice the thunderbolt streaking across the rainfall or even the black blur zooming through the crowd. Both of these strange sights stopped where Luffy was standing, who didn't even raise an eyebrow. Instead, he looked like a general focused on the horizon. Is everything ready? Yes, Captain. Kuro, of course, appeared from the black blur while the thunderbolt revealed the navigator who placed her head on Luffy's shoulder. This was something that both men were used to. My guess is that Robin still didn't want to come back, Nami said from her comfy spot. Luffy grimly nodded. Those two bastards from CP9 could care less as long as they are allowed to kill as part of their job. But I saw it in her eyes. Robin wants over 20 years of running in fear to end in anyway. Luffy responded, and both of his witnesses knew that tone very well. Who says that a scorned woman is the only person with hellish fury? This was a man who is ready to challenge the world if it means to get his friend back. Just say where we are going because I will find the way and everyone else will make sure we arrive. Nami spoke up again and Luffy adjusted his trademark, treasured hat upwards a bit to show his eyes. They are filled with contained anger and undeniable focus. They are heading to one of the three main spots that connect to Marine headquarters and the inescapable Impel Down. Enies lobby. It is called the Island Without Night and is where all criminals are taken to be judged. Luffy answered. And it is where Robin will be returned to us, through force if necessary. If this wasn't an emergency, then I will have 1,000 complaints. Luffy was the one who wanted to complain about the situation. And who can blame him when you see the only train available to use on the sea train tracks to chase after the train carrying Robin and Franky. This was the old prototype made to test the railings and was locked away for apparently being too unstable and too fast for passengers. Unfortunately, this is the only thing left that run on those tracks. I understand, Mugiwara, Straw Hat. I wish that I made another prototype to use. Iceberg responded while walking out of the door to the engine. I was still able to repair the works so that it will run. Just be careful of when it hits the tracks, the speeds are very dangerous. Duly noted, it will be enough to get everyone to Enies lobby. Luffy said. 10. Nami appeared with a gigantic sack on her shoulder. Even as the captain's girlfriend, she is trained in the same way as the rest of the crew. Great timing, Nami-chan. Is everything in there? Yes, Luffy-kun, every piece of food and drinks from 2 miles of here. Nami was only a bit out of breath, but Luffy stole away what's left with a passionate kiss. One that she returned and let her boyfriend dominate. To them it was a moment, but it was actually just a split second before Luffy opened the sack to share some of the drinks with Zoro. Needless to say, the look on the swordsman's face was rather cute. No problem. Nami answered the kiss with barely any breath left. Are you sure about coming, Miss Kokura? Luffy broke the ice and addressed the aged woman with an eternal smile. She just giggled, either from the booze or the concern or both. Franky was a handful years back, but he was still Tom's appearance, and the least I can do is help you good people get him back. She answered. I was there when the tracks and the train were first made. I know them both better than anyone. Then she went back to drinking, somehow not killing her bold claim. Luffy just helped her walk up the stairs and reach one of the benches to collapse on. Okay, and that letter from Sanji told us that he already got on the train. Luffy started and gritted his teeth while Nami and Zoro felt the itch to strangle the pervert return. That clown had the nerve to make a love letter and paint a huge sign telling anyone where it was. But the real message was found. The only good news was that Sanji left a mini Den Den Mushi transponder snail to use once the cook found one on the train to use. He will have to expect quite the mouthful for being so foolish in a serious situation. Alright, let's get everyone together and head off. Luffy spoke again to break the tension. XXXXX. By the time the rest of the Straw Hats still on the island, including Usopp, were on board in the cramped train car, Kokura had finally sobered up to work the controls. The two twins were also on board, being the big fans of Franky they both were. Thankfully, they were good enough with swords and teamwork to fight the upcoming battle. And the Rocket Man, the name of the old prototype train, went off according to its namesake. It literally rocketed out of the old room where it was stored in for who knows how long, and somehow it was able to run on the water and not sink. Oh dear, the rain has already fallen and that will make it more difficult to see the tracks, Kokura pointed out while she poked her head out of the window. The storm which follows the Aqua Laguna was still going strong. There was no time to wait for it to pass over. There they are, to your left. Kokura heard a voice and moved for the left side, catching an outline of the tracks. Just a little more, you are almost there. Kokura knew that voice and hoped that it wasn't so until Chimmy. It was the old lady's granddaughter and her pet, riding on the engine. What are you doing here? Did you sneak on board? The little girl could only laugh while Kokura screamed for them to get inside. But the surprises just kept coming. Hey, Straw Hat. We are coming too. Heads popped out the windows on the train car to see a house being dragged along the tracks by a pair of giant creatures that looked like horses with fins. Hope you don't mind. Launch the grappler. Before anyone could respond, the house had latched onto the train car with a metal tool. Yet the worst came when Kokura had gotten her granddaughter indoors and the rocket man had finally got onto the tracks. That meant that the old prototype can go at full speeds. Such velocity was deadly to humans while the two seahorses were able to withstand. Once everyone was indoors and safe from the deadly speeds outside, they started to catch their breath. Sorry guys, I wished that we had something safer than this old prototype train. Luffy apologized to the Franky family head, named Zambai. Zambai is a tall man with long black hair usually sticking up and a wide grin. He wears the goggles that are shared by the other Franky family members, gloves, and suspenders with stockings on his legs. He also has shamrock-shaped tattoos on his shoulders. And now, Luffy spoke up again. Will the trio who greeted us on our arrival please explain why are they on board? Everyone turned to face the exact three shipbuilders from before sitting comfortably on the bench. At least say that Iceberg sent you with us. With the glares from everyone else, Polly spoke up. I say yes and no, President told us what you said to your wayward crew member and that those agents tried to kill him. We came because we want to tell the world that they can't screw with Mr. Iceberg and get away with it. Polly explained in a lazy but serious tone. His two fellow carpenters agreed and said that they stowed away in the coal tender. Luffy then clapped his hands for everyone's attention. I am glad that you all are here. We need as many hands as it takes to do this. And we may not have been friends in the time that we all knew each other, but we have the same enemy. Luffy extended out an arm. But now we will fight that same enemy to get back at THNG to screw with us. We may not be friends after this, but now, we are something bigger. Polly and Zambai soon joined their arms to form a complete triangle. Hear this loud and clear, we are all comrades. XXXXX. With such a short but epic speech, everyone was rearing to battle to the death to get back Robin and Franky. Too bad that there was bad news. The Aqua Laguna was still storming on the seas and a monster wave was in their way. The Franky family started to panic, as so did the carpenters, but the Straw Hats merely stared it down. Why aren't you scared of the monster wave? Luffy said he will handle it. It must have taken some deep connection for every single pirate on board to speak in perfect unison, the type that is almost creepy. Heads popped out of the window to see where the captain was. Luffy was standing out of the train, on the nose of the rocket man. With good eyes, they would have seen that Luffy was staring with serious eyes and had both of his swords out. You sure are big. You remind me of the mountains that I trained with back in the day with Shanks. Luffy said to the wave, not caring if someone heard that or not. And I perfected the right move to take on foes just as tough as you. Luffy took some kind of stance. His legs and feet were pressing into the steel beneath while his arms and swords were placed to somewhat resemble a spiral. With 100 steps to cook. Reimei Atami. Dawn Pain. Grew black. 100 days to cool. Uedoku Toge. Toxic Thorn. Also grew black, and when the wave was inches away. Nihyaku Nen Shapiro Jozo. 200-year Chateau Brew. Luffy screamed to reach the heavens and the monster wave was slain. The pressure and power behind that single technique was strong enough to be seen through the storm. All of it centered one point before the wave instantly parted to make way for the train to pass through with ease. Even through the rain, Luffy felt like his body had burned up and steam rose from his arms through the raindrops. All the while, his audience thought that they had died when they witnessed a single man kill a force of at least 100 meters tall, twice as thick if more and strong enough to sink dozens of ships. The Straw Hats wished they could have seen their captain in action and just felt either awe and or pride to follow a man of true strength. The Franky family and the trio of carpenters were all shocked. This kind of thing is rare to see even in paradise. You will have better luck finding something like that in the new world. That's my man, girls, Nami said out loud, so if you want a piece then you will have to go through me first. To add some juice to that statement, Nami grew a sadistic grin and her right arm turned into raw thunder. The spare sparks bounced around and even messed with the lighting. We will worry about that later, Nami-chan. Luffy moved back into the train car before anyone could say anything to Nami's claim. Because you might want to keep your heads inside the car. Luffy added, and the ones who still were suddenly heard the sound of metal crashing along. It was just a split second, but everyone saw about 100 men frozen in place while 2 cars pass around harmlessly and 2. I was surprised to see 2 whole train cars just drifting on the tracks. Sanji did this, no doubt. That was when the baby Den Den Mushi started to rain. It was Sanji on the other end. He has Franky freed and wants permission to free Robin too. Also, they noticed that Isa was also on board. XXXXX, Sanji. I want to say this only once. Luffy responded while everyone stood still and silent. It was rude to interrupt a call between those two, not to mention this feeling at the back of their heads that warned them about upsetting Luffy. He is already in unhappy mood that his little sister snuck in while they were all distracted, not to mention that Nami and Najiko gave Isa one killer lecture, leaving ears ringing. Freeing Franky helps a lot, but with CP9 in your way, the 2 of you will get killed. Robin wants to feed the hyena pack before they going hunting for her themselves. Don't try it and make sure that the carpenter is not killed off. The snail didn't speak nor change its current appearance. Fine. But I am not happy about all this, Captain. If those jerks think they can get away with this, they will have to sit with a pain in their ass, literally. Luffy felt his eyebrow itch, but it counted, although. I wish that you will curb that tongue of yours when Isa is listening, Sanji. Just make sure not to challenge the CP9 officers and watch Robin. Only intervene when clear harm is going to come. Luffy finished his order and ended the call. Don't worry, Robin, we will never give up on you. If a fight is what it takes, we will give them one. Luffy thought to himself and faced straight into the storm that seems to go on forever. But this pirate had walked through hell on earth once before, this will be nothing. Sanji, I want to say this only once. Luffy responded while everyone stood still and silent. It was rude to interrupt a call between those two, not to mention this feeling at the back of their heads that warned them about upsetting Luffy. He is already in unhappy mood that his little sister snuck in while they were all distracted, not to mention that Nami and Najiko gave Isa one killer lecture, leaving ears ringing. Freeing Franky helps a lot, but with CP9 in your way, the 2 of you will get killed. Robin wants to feed the hyena pack before they going hunting for her themselves. Don't try it and make sure that the carpenter is not killed off. The snail didn't speak nor change its current appearance. Fine. But I am not happy about all this, Captain. If those jerks think they can get away with this, they will have to sit with a pain in their ass, literally. Luffy felt his eyebrow itch, but it counted, although. I wish that you will curb that tongue of yours when Isa is listening, Sanji. Just make sure not to challenge the CP9 officers and watch Robin. Only intervene when clear harm is going to come. Luffy finished his order and ended the call. Don't worry, Robin, we will never give up on you. If a fight is what it takes, we will give them one. Luffy thought to himself and faced straight into the storm that seems to go on forever. But this pirate had walked through hell on earth once before, this will be nothing. Come on, Captain, you will catch a cold out there in the rain. Frank tried to call out to Luffy from the train car. Or better yet, tell us when the half of us on the floor are going to wake up. I get that the girls were redressing, but Frank felt severe worse than the storm. Finish that sentence and you will not fall to the floor, but to the sea. I can tell that you got excited. Luffy finally answered and his voice was heard loud and clear despite the winds and rain. You just find a seat next to your girlfriend and talk her into letting you watch her next time. Frank didn't have anything to say to that and did just that. Luffy knew that there was something else he wanted to complain about to Iceberg and that there was only one train car. No privacy to change into clothes more suited for battle. Not that he was the typical overprotective boyfriend, but Luffy was a sucker for a woman's need to change in private. And he didn't want anyone, in the same room as his girlfriend. Whatever she was hiding was between her and Luffy, alone. Now, he is just staring off into the distance with the rain pelting his straw hat, not that he cared. After the giant wave and that loose pair of freight cars, there were no other obstacles in their way. I still don't know why a man in a billion such as yourself siding with monsters playing games with us. Luffy spoke again, but not to the fighters inside the car he was riding on. It was a marine, formerly a knight, that tried to slow down their train following the runaway train cars. His name is T-Bone. T-Bone had curly long black hair, a skeletal face, and a long neck, and he is missing one tooth. He was pot-bellied with muscular arms and thin legs. Even after becoming a marine, his overall appearance mirrors his former occupation. He is clad in golden, sleeveless chain-mail armor with an ornately decorated collar, and he wears a helmet with a long, flowing purple plume on the top. Over his cuirass, he has a tunic emblazoned with the marine symbol. He has a rope belt tied around his waist, similar to the ones worn by some samurai. His attire is completed by standard light blue pants and shoes. It should be noted that many elements of his outfit have one or more crosses on them. His helmet, the pendants hanging from his belt, and his sword's hilt. It will be pointless to explain myself to a criminal. T-Bone retorted. After all, you are a pirate. A Shichibuki, royal pirate warlord, too, but still a pirate. Why are you risking your luxury and safety for that demon? ARRGH. Luffy silenced the zombie-looking marine with a mean grip without even turning his head. And I don't see a point of explaining myself to a slave of the government calling himself a hero. Despite speaking deeply, the storm couldn't muffle out the anger in Luffy's voice. I don't see why brave and selfless men are following orders from their inferiors with flashy clothes, stupid names and fancy titles. Why is that? Despite being tied up and tar beaten out of him, T-Bone tried to not to look Luffy. We are all black and white, you know. He started to say out of the blue, and Luffy didn't respond. The Marines and I are aware that you were the one who dealt with your fellow pirates effortlessly in your home sea of the East Blue, and you were the one who saved Alabasta from Crocodile with ease. There are some of us who didn't appreciate lying to the world that we did all that. Like Smoker. Luffy finally spoke and his tone was confident. He knew why he said that name. T-Bone just nodded, which wasn't seen in the storm. You own me, you know. I was also the one who got Smokey to forget about quitting while he was on his way to fitting my grandfather's shoes. He will be as happy as any stone-hard smoker will be to hear that I have no intent to stay in a Shichibuki. I have my own reasons for taking the throne. T-Bone didn't say anything back that time, just remembering when he heard the report about the island of Jaya and the armpit settlement of Mocktown. From the reporting Marine, who witnessed the battle, noted that the pirates followed a certain dirtbag that acted like he was cheated out of his winnings. There have been plenty of pirates who dared challenge the Shichibuki, arrogantly thinking that the latter were no big deal. But T-Bone personality never heard of a pirate beating another to the punch. Another thing, I was actually impressed with your skill. Not every master swordsman I have met could use energy attacks. Will it be too much to ask for some pointers on your style? Luffy finally turned his head towards his captive with a smile belonging to an asylum inmate. T-Bone could only break into a cold sweat, even in the warm rainstorm. XXXXX. A short while later, Sanji. Luffy was now in the train car but in a fouler mood. His chef in question was on the floor with a massive lump on his head. I remember, clearly, that my orders were to watch over Franky and not to challenge CP9. Yet you tried anyways, and we had to fish you out of the storm. What's your excuse? The blondie shivered badly from his spot, either from the wet clothes or that his captain is not happy in the slightest. They were supposed to be watching over Robin-san, but Sanji finally spoke and tried to ignore the massive lump that throbs badly. They changed plans, Captain. Luffy raised an eyebrow and leaned in for more. They even had that guy watch over the cyborg, and the next thing I know, you were on me. They were ready for his captain. Luffy stopped listening when Sanji mentioned that Franky was guarded by a CP9 member instead of being their spare prisoner. Just get Chopper to have that fixed before we arrive. The captain mused and waved his hand with the gesture of not really being interested. Now are you going to talk or drown, Nero the water rattling? Nero is a pale, slim man, wearing a striking attire consisting of a dark brown t-shirt, orange pants, decorated shoes and a hat adorned with a red plume. He has two necklaces around his neck, a simple one composed of green beads, and a bigger and more elaborate one, which consists of many red jewels linked together. He wears a glove on his left hand, and bracelets around the wrist. He had a unique hairstyle, with a bald top crossed by 3 mohawk-like strips. Call me what you want, pirate. I have nothing to tell you that you already know. Nero tried to put up a strong front as he, like T-Bone, is just a captive and prisoner. I was just another pawn to slow you guys down, so my defeat changes nothing. You still can't prove that you can defeat the strongest of all CP9. Rob Lucci is undefeatable. His busted lip and bleeding gums. I didn't ask about your naive and narrow-minded view of the one who kicked you out to die out there. Luffy retorted harshly yet calmly. And if CP9 still thinks little of us, then why bother thinning your ranks to protect a ship stripper and mob leader like Franky? Why is that cyborg such a precious prisoner? Nero scowled, like he wanted to silence Luffy, but not even Iso was stirred. Do you seriously think that our bosses tell any of his pawns? We just do what they break and rebuild us to do. Follow their orders without question. Nero answered, and it got Luffy's grip on his throat. I mean it, they tell us nothing. And yet you are still lying. Luffy retorted. Besides, I am asking what they tell you. I am asking about what you know anyways. To add some good measure, Nero saw the same demon as Eneru and Kuzan. So talk, we are tired of your lies. Nero was scared witless and became a sweating mess. He was loyal and not dumb. He knew that Luffy meant business, and especially now. And he was probably forgotten by his former superiors anyways. They speak of plans to a battleship. Nero finally talked, but with a whisper that everyone heard anyways. They even talked about the name, Pluton. That name rang in the ears of the Straw Hats, while the Franky family and the trio of carpenters were a bit confused. It was only a moment later that a few of them showed shock on their faces. Pluton. As in one of the 3 ancient weapons. The same ones that even the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, fear? Luffy had his face darkened and finally released Nero from his grip that had gotten numb. In the sandy kingdom of Alabasta, there was a giant block of unknown stone with gibberish written on it. Yet Robin understood them to document Pluton, something that she never wanted to learn, so she lied to whoever asked. Luffy spoke in a grim tone. That's why they wanted Robin and also why they lied to the world that natives of Ohara were demons. What better way to kill off an island? Make an 8-year-old girl a criminal and get their hands on the weapon for them to use? The world will never consider this to be a kidnapping but the world government doing the justice of a crime that never happened. Taking a breather to let all this sink and stick, Luffy wandered to an unoccupied window to stare off into the storm again. And that is why we are getting Robin back. If I have to raise hell on earth to do it, so be it. XXXXX on the C train, still heading to Enies lobby on schedule. What? That idiot mayor is still alive. Franky was moved from one prison car to another, one that happens to be Robin's. Man, and they told me that he was killed off too. I guess that they were too embarrassed to admit it, stupid government jerks, they are all the same. Robin said nothing while Franky had something else to say. And now you are telling me that your boyfriend sent that blonde idiot from before to save you. You must feel like them kitty fairy tale princesses, eh? I am no princess to them, or anyone. I am just a demon, guilty for existing. That's what everyone I ever met say to me. Robin spoke again with dejection and bottled up emotions showing up again. There was just this little thing at the back of her head assuring her that Franky will not reject her like the countless others that tried to sell her out. That's a lot like how I thought of my ships. I tried to be a good student but all I was good at was making warships. Ice Idiot was the real apprentice while I was just a pain in everyone's ass. Franky said. The last I ever seen of my teacher that took me in and taught me everything I know about carpentering, he gave me one final lesson. He told me that there is never any shame in building a ship even if turned into a criminal's vessel. As a carpenter, there is nothing wrong with building ships. I was determined from there to not let the world lie to me about what I love to do. Don't you let them lie to you about that bullshit with the crime of living. Robin was silent and Franky didn't care whether his words got to her or not. The cyborg just felt something he had in common with her. The feeling that no one in the entire world will want to have them for friends or care about them. But that was before they met the same man and his crew of fellow dreamers. Luffy defeated Crocodile without as much as a scratch, Robin thought to herself. He stopped tens of thousands of guards and rebels from killing each other. He faced a man others called a god and also easily defeated him. Robin turned to face the storm that was parting, which could have been good news. But in their case, it was a sign that they were almost to Enies lobby, where their lives will be in the hands of the world government. Luffy, Robin thought to herself once again. Please come and show not just me but the whole world what you can do. What you can do for me what everyone else couldn't. Please Luffy, I am counting on you. I am no princess to them, or anyone. I am just a demon, guilty for existing. That's what everyone I ever met say to me. Robin spoke again with dejection and bottled up emotions showing up again. There was just this little thing at the back of her head assuring her that Franky will not reject her like the countless others that tried to sell her out. That's a lot like how I thought of my ships. I tried to be a good student but all I was good at was making warships. Ice Idiot was the real apprentice while I was just a pain in everyone's ass. Franky said. The last I ever seen of my teacher that took me in and taught me everything I know about carpentering, he gave me one final lesson. He told me that there is never any shame in building a ship even if turned into a criminal's vessel. As a carpenter, there is nothing wrong with building ships. I was determined from there to not let the world lie to me about what I love to do. Don't you let them lie to you about that bullshit with the crime of living. Robin was silent and Franky didn't care whether his words got to her or not. The cyborg just felt something he had in common with her. The feeling that no one in the entire world will want to have them for friends or care about them. But that was before they met the same man and his crew of fellow dreamers. Luffy defeated Crocodile without as much as a scratch, Robin thought to herself. He stopped tens of thousands of guards and rebels from killing each other. He faced a man that others called a god and also easily defeated him. Robin turned to face the storm that was parting, which could have been good news. But in their case, it was a sign that they were almost to Enies lobby, where their lives will be in the hands of the world government. Luffy, Robin thought to herself once again. Please come and show not just me but the whole world what you can do. What you can do for me what everyone else couldn't. Please Luffy, I am counting on you. Soon, the train had stopped and Robin felt it stir once it did. Looking outside the window, she got a view of Enies lobby. It was an island of sorts, looming over what seems to be a bottomless pit where the seawater was falling into. The island was held above the pit by a thin but incredibly sturdy chunk of earth, connecting the island to the mainland that the train arrived at. There was a single large tower in the distance surrounded by what looks like a typical town that had the houses made of stone and wood but also decorated with the Navy's colors and flags. Robin was then directed off the train, and when she dropped off at the train stop, "Hey, hands off, punk!" she only turned one eye to see that Franky was chained completely and biting down on the unfortunate Marine that tried to drag him out of the train. "I'm just property and a wild dog to tug on a leash, am I? Fine then, I will bite the heads of any of you idiotic jerks that treat me like a rabid animal." Robin could only shake her head at how her fellow prisoner is acting. "Move it, prisoners. Your judgment awaits at the Tower of Justice. The unnamed government official called out and more Marines were able to subdue the rapid Franky while that unlucky one was taken in for treatment. Robin didn't even protest and walked down the pathway connecting the island to the mainland. Franky just marveled at how such a thing could be so easily held up, like a thin hanger holding up a full-grown vulture or heavier. Luffy, please hurry. I don't know how much time we have before we are killed here. Robin thought to herself and looked into the storm with just one eye, to not draw any attention from the Marines or black suits dragging her and Franky along. XXXXX Meanwhile, back on the tracks, you better be sorry, Wartlump. Luffy was in a bad mood again and it wasn't the weather. It was the giant frog with enough lumps and bruises to match its warts, lying right behind the young captain. You almost delayed us with your rescue attempt, and I hear that frog legs can taste good with some sake to wash it all down. Luffy turned with a malicious sparkle in his eye despite the storm. The frog just shivered and let out a weak croak. Luffy-kun, the said captain didn't move his head, even to the angelic voice calling out for his name. He knew who it was and it was a lot better company than that oversized cold-blooded wartface. I am not going to brash me more than this. Okay? That was more reckless than Luffy can ever be. Thanks for not letting us getting derailed, but please stay in the cabin car. All those ugly men keep creeping me out. That was why I asked for another freight car from that stingy mayor. But I will like someone much pretty than him, keeping me company. Nami could read her boyfriend like a book but she loved it anyways. Especially when she could cozy up with him in his captain's coat. It always seemed to be impervious to the weather somehow. Then 2 beams of sunlight shot out and hit each of them in the eye. That got their attention and for once, they dreaded that it was the clearing coming up. Because that wasn't just a clearing or an eye of the storm, it was Enies' lobby. They made it to the world government's backyard. Wait just a bit longer, Robin. We are coming and the others will not give up either. Luffy spoke calmly and even the storm couldn't block it out. Nami, of course, got the emphasis on the word, we, and grasped her boyfriend's hand. Next came what witnesses though to be a thunderbolt that shot up from the ocean, instead down from the storm clouds. They all didn't know just how wrong they were. XXXXX, this is a day just for me, a man shouts as he gazes out of his window from the larger tower. Not only will that devil of a woman finally be brought to justice but the plans from that same jerk who scarred me will hand over those plans to ensure my promotion. While this figure was monologuing to himself, a trio of killers just said nothing and sat on their couch. And the best part is that we will all get the recognition as the best cipher-pulled team in history, led by the mighty Spandam. Spandam is a pale man of slim stature with wavy, wild lavender hair in a layered style that is roughly shoulder-length and parted in the middle. He has black markings around his large eyes, and his narrow nose is a dark red. He is fond of leather, and wears a brown-studded leather mask which covers the bridge of his nose and scars on his moderately high forehead just above his eyebrows. He also has a strong chin as well as long brown leather gloves and a black high-collared leather vest with matching pants separated by a studded belt. He has white shoes with brown tassels extending from their heels, and wears a long-sleeved light gray shirt decorated with a diagonal squiggle pattern below his vest with the collar turned up. His face is very expressive, and he has a large smile that causes his slightly angular eyebrows to narrow in slightly. Am I right, Jabra? Spandam turned to the 3 assassins, still silent from the ranting. Jabra is a dark-skinned man, with a Fu Manchu mustache, a pointed goatee, and long hair braided in a thick queue, that somewhat resembles a scorpion's tail. He also has a scar running diagonally down his left eye. When in his half-wolf state, Jabra has an unusually large tail and snout. He has the kanji for wolf tattooed on the front of his shoulder. He wore small, pointed sunglasses on his forehead, small hoop earrings, and a black tie over his bare chest. He wore a black tongjuang that was white down the middle and always open, but somehow always covered his tattoo when in human form. He also wore a red sash around his waist over black pants and shoes. Kumadori is recognizable by his large frame, huge mane of pinkish hair, and a right eye that rarely seems to be open. Like other CP9 agents, he wears a black suit, black pants, black shoes and a black shirt, but Kumadori wore a green tie. He also wore handguards covering the backs of his hands that were tied around his palm. And Fukuro is a big, round, odd zipper across his mouth, which he must unzip if he needs to speak. He dresses in black formal wear and has green, well-groomed hair, purple dimples on his cheeks and strands of hair on his chin. Okay, I get the zipper on your lip but the rest of you are just killing me with the silent treatment. Spandam responded with a deadpan and walked back to his desk that had a newspaper with an article on display. And while I'm still carrying the conversation, please explain why you killed 23 people on your last mission when I said, clear as day, that only 3 were your targets. The assassins didn't even feel guilty, listening to a buffoon try to intimidate them. And I thought that you all can keep your love of killing down to the point that these killings won't be tracked to our superiors, so what is your excuse? Yo. A rattling voice finally broke the silence as the old-looking man with makeup bowed down so low that his forehead hit the ground, that even make it itch. My apologies for us failing our mission. We disgraced ourselves and our line of work. I will gladly cut my stomach open to restore the honor, and he did. Or at least he tried. Once his blade hit his stomach, there was only the sound of iron block hitting a steel wall. I am such a failure that I can't even kill myself for the sake of my comrades. Shut up already and let me explain. Jabra shouted off towards the depressed Kumadori, tearing in his corner. Chief, we meant to kill just 3 but we were found somehow and we had to finish off those 20 witnesses before they will report it to the rest of the town. We really had no idea how this mission went wrong, yet one did. I told everyone when we got there. Fukuro literally unzipped his mouth and blurted out the truth just like how he sold out his own partners. Jabra widened his eyes. And that is why that zipper is there. You call yourself the quiet, but you are just a babbler mouth. Jabra ranted on and on while tugging at the zipper mouth. You will think that this will teach Spandam what it is like to live with himself, but that wasn't the case. Be glad that our superiors fixed your mistake for me and said that it was bandits. Regardless, you be on your best behavior because today is when our class reunion is about to happen. The chief said, still full of himself, and the 3 assassins returned to their usual spot. Sitting on the couch and not saying another word. None of them were looking forward to this. 5 years still seemed not long enough to be rid of their old rivals from their years of training. We are here, Chief. The doors opened and the CP9 members from Water 7 entered with the hostages in hand, sending them to the ground. Spandam was smiling while the other CP9 members were not. At last, the 2 freaks and criminals that shall make me the hero of the world. Spandam walked over, with his arrogant air almost suffocating everyone in the room. Hello, demon child. You finally decided that running was never going to atone for all those you killed 20 years ago. Kneeling down, Spandam got a little too close for comfort, and I got to say that you look both beautiful and pathetic in your rightful place. Franky Foreshu Fea, Franky Fresh Fire. The cyborg shot out a large fireball from his mouth that prompted the chief to back away from the 2 hostages. Sorry ugly, but she is hands off, and pity that I missed. You would have looked better with another scrap of iron on that stupid face of yours, Spanda. I told you, use the that man needs to get his priorities straight, and his team of assassins really felt like fools following an even bigger fool. And you don't get to be so smug when you are tied up and just moments from your execution. How could such a man like yourself follow a criminal? Franky didn't argue or even growl, just kept his smirk. You never cared back then, so what changed your mind, Spanda? Wait, never mind, it is pointless. There is no reason to explain anything to an idiotic, cowardly jerk like you. For once, the chief didn't have anything to say and the assassins found a smile on their faces for the first time in forever. As fun as this is, Lucci finally spoke up, breaking the moment. We have become aware that the Straw Hats will be coming here for the hostages. And, from what happened on the train, the captain knows a bit too much about us. And while the others agreed, even the hostages, there was the one person who couldn't care less. Oh, let them come if they dare. Not even Whitebeard will want to come here, for we have the strongest cipher pull team in history. Spandam started to rant again, and so soon. And no pirate crew is a match for our troops. I am sure that they are dead right now. XXXXX on the contrary, the intruding pirates were very much alive and in perfect shape, which is more one can say for the Marines that got in their way. Are you sure about taking out so many? You will know how the action-loving guys will say about that. Nami asked casually while turning yet another handful of Marines into flimsy lighting rods. Luffy just did his own share with his arm as a whip, while not even looking. I know what they will say to me, but they will have their own words for you. The captain answered and kept on walk towards the tower. I count about half of the Marines still fighting by now, so let's leave these for the rest of the gang. Nami didn't feel like arguing and ran after Luffy like a schoolgirl following her crush. Just then, halt humans. The pair looked up to the booming voice to see what could only be.
Giants, Luffy and Nami said in perfect unison. In the 50 years we worked here, not a single intruder has gotten past us. You ran out of luck, humans. One of them was a bit pudgy and held a club while the one was a bit more refined. Nami knew that her boyfriend was better, and welded an axe.
Oh, we don't want to fight. We want to be friends with you two, Oimo and Kashi. Luffy said, pointing to the one with the club and the one with the axe respectively. Oimo had a flat, pig-like nose and a rotund body. He has long, flowing orange hair, along with some stubble on his chin. He sports Viking attire, with a light green short-sleeved shirt lined in brown-green. He also wears tab suspenders with large gold buttons, and a big pink tunic with brown lace lined on the top with a lighter-colored fluff. Under that, he sports green-brown pants with big black boots. He is seen wearing a Roman-style helmet, with gold around the edges and red in the middle, with pink frills on the top. Finally, he has a big black belt with a gold buckle. And Kashi wore Viking attire, has long dark hair and a big semi-bearded chin. He sports orange suspenders, which hold up an orange and black kilt with yellow buttons on it. Otherwise, his torso and arms are bare, exposing well-toned muscles. He has big black boots that go up his shins, as well as an orange helmet with a tan brim and 2 small tan stripes around the middle. Finally, the top of the helmet has light blue frills reminiscent of a mohawk, supported by a tan protrusion along the center, and 2 small horns are on the sides. "How do you know our names, human?" Kashi yelled in shock while both he and Oimo readied their weapons. Nami just had a smirk on her face as she knew how, and the looks on everyone's faces were just too much not to laugh at. "I know more than your names. I know over 100 years ago that you two were pirates." Luffy responded, and the 2 giants tensed up even more. "And I know that you were doped." That got Nami's attention too, while the giants started to glow red with anger. "How dare you, human? They have our captains and promised to release them after 100 years of perfect duty. And we are not going to," Oimo shouted before Luffy started to laugh, but not as usual. "Gegya gya. That's Dory." This caused the giants to freeze, but Luffy wasn't done just yet. "And this is Brogy, gaba ba ba ba." This, at first, confused Nami until she figured it out. The very next moment, the Gia. "How do you know their names and how they laugh? They are in prison," Kashi shouted out and noticed that the 2 pirates grew a dark look shadowing their eyes. "No, they are not. They are still trying to settle the score on Little Garden." "Do you want more proof?" Luffy responded and waited for the giants to answer. Instead of more denial, the 2 giants fell on their rear ends. "So now what? We have been tricked into working for you humans for half a century. What will our captains think of us? How are we going to find the rest of the crew?" Oimo whimpered. He knew that no pride or honor could be an excuse for this disgrace. "We can ask that you wreak havoc on this island to satisfy yourselves. And a certain man named Iceberg will really appreciate a pair of giants helping out with his shipbuilding company," Luffy suggested, and the 2 giants looked at each other. Judging by the looks on their faces, this was a deal too good to pass up on. "Can you please start by sending that ugly thing behind you 2 into the giant hole?" Immediately, the 2 giants obeyed, and Nami got to see the stone base easily wiped out with just a pair of swings. It scared her to think that giants are easily capable of such destruction. No wonder she wanted giants on her crew. Luffy mumbled to himself, and while Nami heard it, she didn't have the energy to question it. "If you see a band of colorful characters that stand out apart from the Marines, those are your friend too. They could use your help." "Okay, human. We will just squash those liars," Kashi shouted as both he and Oimo charged towards the town behind the pirates. Nami giggled. "Just how do you it, Luffy-kun? Is it the king inside you?" Nami was awed before she started to tease her boyfriend in a playful tone, not wanting to be mocking or anything. Luffy just shrugged, but the smirk on his face let his girlfriend know what he really is thinking about this. Then the backs of their necks stiffened and the pair turned to see their ride catching up, as in the Rocketman somehow charging along the stone pavement instead of the sea tracks. "Our ride is here." Luffy calmly and casually spoke, wrapped his arm around Nami's waist and jumped to ride on the side. "You're the craziest captain ever," someone shouted off, and Luffy didn't even care to see who it was exactly. "Thank you, and hold on, XXXXX." Apparently the Rocketman got off the tracks in the sea when that giant sumo frog actually used a palm attack to turn the railing into a ramp. And at the speed that the Rocketman was traveling, it was no surprise that it flew over the entrance, and it was strong enough to tunneling through the buildings to reach the tower gate, or what was left of it. Soon enough, the Rocketman reached small stone building right in front of the tower's base. "This is our stop. Everyone, jump ship." And so, they all did. Even Kokura and her wards. Not even the giant frog wanted to stay on a charging bull of a train that is just going to go through walls until it falls into the giant pit. "Madam, please find a safe spot for you and your wards. And make sure that you are not seen. Don't give the world government an excuse to arrest all of you." Luffy spoke to them and motioned his crew up a flight of stairs that was conveniently in sight. Once they reached the top of the stairwell, "Hold it there." A deep voice got their attention, and the Straw Hats saw the same man from Water 7 that tried to assassinate the mayor. The man who posed as a simple bartender on the streets, Bluno. "You people must be suicidal. This is Enies' lobby, where the guilty are sentenced and served to the world government. To break in and cause such destruction must mean that you won't have it this way. You lied to one of ours, scared her into giving herself up to be killed. We may be pirates, but we are not pawns." Luffy responded, and Bluno glared, wondering what the former was playing for. "We are not tools, we are not puppets, and we are not being used by corrupt tyrants, greedy governors, and paranoid old men. You ought to be ashamed of yourself." Bluno gritted his teeth. "Nevertheless, we will kill to make sure that you don't get in our way of wiping out all the evil in the world. We are CP9, we are justice." Bluno vanished, and so did Luffy. In that split second, the Straw Hats saw what happened. The fact that they could see a brawl that occurred in a flash was enough to scare themselves on how they have gotten since the very first week they sailed under Luffy. The next second, their captain landed on his feet like a cat while Bluno screamed of bloody murder on the ground. Back in the mansion on Water 7, Luffy had shown his speed and strength by easily bending Bluno's finger. Now, History has happened again. Only instead of the finger, Luffy bent Blueno's arm. His crew saw that Blueno's stabbing motion was dodged and Luffy took the collected momentum to snap the arm right at the shoulder blade. While Blueno tried to ignore the terrible pain and the numbness of his limp arm, he turned to face Luffy. But what he saw was a devil. The pirate captain's face had the grin of a malicious demon while another figure loomed over Luffy, almost completely featureless but with the same evil grin. One that promises pain before death. It was too much for Blueno and he fainted with foam forming at the mouth. He didn't even feel when Luffy kicked him in the side, sending the large man with bullhorns flying into a monument, out of the way of the Straw Hats. What's all that racket? They heard that annoying voice in the wind and they said nothing. They just found a spot to stand tall and strong as they faced the perch high on the Tower of Justice. What, you all are still alive? I said Blueno to kill you, so why aren't you dead? What we did to him is what we are going to do to you, for Robin, for Franky and for how you call us evil when you lie and kill to get your way. Luffy responded, with the wind actually carrying his voice so the ones on the perch could hear him. It was like the wind itself was at Luffy's back, literally and figuratively. How arrogant can you be? The figure responded with a cocky laugh, ironical considering what Spandam just said. We are the world government. Over 170 countries have put aside the useless wars to be one that covers and rules the world. I don't see why you people can't see that the world is just fine the way it is. Because we don't care what you think or about how you sold your soul to be corrupted. To be someone that is no different than the same thing that you claim to be perfect. Luffy spoke calmly. Now we are here for only 2 people and they better not be harmed. Spandam just stared again and let out another fit of laughter. Or what, are you and your puny pirates going to bang on our door like peasants? The demon child and the cyborg belong to us. We will do whatever we want with them. And there is nothing that you can do about it. Because of that flag flapping like a crumpled pigeon. Luffy responded with an eerily calm tone that showed that Luffy was not going to let Spandam get him under his skin. He spoke it as an answer to the question nobody asked. But before Spandam could respond, Luffy turned to Usopp and nodded. The sniper nodded back, reached for his trusty rifle and aimed carefully above. It's that flag, that ugly symbol drawn on it is what you believe in. Usopp spoke up while still aiming his weapon. This is what Robin had to run from for over 20 years and is what you are using to scare her into submission. To threaten her life with. Well, this is what we say did. Usopp finally pressed his finger against the trigger and unleashed what looked like a bird made of fire, soaring from the mouth of the rifle. Hai no Tori Boshi, Fire Bird Star. Usopp gave that attack a name right before it hit its target, the world government flag. All around the Straw Hats, time has stopped and so did everyone else who gazed upon the flag burning. It was a big deal since flags served as the identity of countries and armies. In common cultures, to burn end those who serve under the symbol. In other words, the Straw Hats had just declared war on the world government. You traitors, Spandam screamed at the top of his lungs, you allied with us as one of the Shichibuki, 7 royal warlords. Why are you throwing that away, your luxury, your safety? Does that title mean nothing to you? Actually, it doesn't, Luffy answered. What makes me sad was that you didn't care about any of this. What changed your mind? Was it that we refused to let you people walk over us? Mock our dreams? Play with our happiness? Mess with our lives? We are pirates, we don't care? I still think that you people are mad, Spandam retorted. How do you think that the world government will think of this? Do you really think that you can take on the whole world? We do. This time, Luffy didn't answer but the entire pirate crew did. This silenced Spandam and even made the CP9 members that were listening feel sweat go down their necks. Robin, on the other hand, was crying tears again. She was witnessing a miracle. We will fight for our friends, and Robin is one of us, for now, and forever. 4x once again, the world was speechless. Never before was a pirate crew able to easily make their way through Enies' lobby and make it to the Tower of Justice, declare war on the world government and cheered on a criminal as one of their own. The woman in question had tears that won't stop falling, not that she wanted to stop them. Thank you, she finally screamed out, facing the crew that never gave up on her. Robin, now is that time to decide. Do you want to live? Do you want to keep running bed with real friends by your side? You want to be alone or do you want to live? Luffy called out and Robin answered immediately. I do, I want to live. I want to sail to the ends of the seas with my friends. Spandam gritted his teeth at this humiliation. The CP9 members hid how much they respected the Straw Hats for giving Robin hope by their words and their loyalty. Even killers appreciate those who are loyal to each other and their creed. But before their boss could say something to ruin the moment, another voice broke the ice. I had this nagging feeling at the back of my head that these pirates are good people. And I never thought that they will do something this crazy, super even, for a single woman. It was Franky, and he had been watching ever since he made short work of his bindings and even the guards. It was nice of them to leave the keys behind when they really did think that I was going to self-destruct. Too bad that they weren't too happy that I was up and running. What are you going to do now, Cutty Flam? Spandam finally got himself to try and mock his enemies. And while you are here, You can finally tell us where those plans are. They weren't in the mayor's mansion or even your old home, so you must have them. We knew that you traitor of a teacher had those plans, but we couldn't find them either. Where are they? Franky said nothing and then raised his arms in a shrug. I don't have them, not anymore, that is. The cyborg wanted to see a look of disbelief and shock on the face of the man he hated the most, and Franky wasn't disappointed. I knew that you were willing to kidnap a bad guy leader if he had what you wanted more than life itself. So, I gave them to someone that I met recently, on the train. The gears started grinding in CP9's minds and, impressively, Spandam was able to put 2 and 2 together. They all turned to the Straw Hats still standing strong and true. Luffy turned to Sanji and nodded. The cook did the same before retrieving a heavy blueprint from his coat. One that had the name, Pluton. Everyone in the world was told that the 3 ancient weapons are just a myth, and this was made for the event that someone will find the ship that can destroy island. Fight fire with fire, as the saying goes. Sanji spoke, enjoying that Spandam couldn't demand them for himself. Who said that a fool couldn't have common sense? But instead, a master shipbuilder was put down like a rabid dog, by a man who wanted the prince and thus, the weapon for himself. We don't know how many tragedies and injustice that came before, but no more. Spandam knew what the blonde chef meant by those last 3 words and could only reach down to no avail as Sanji relaxed the only grip he had on the blueprints, leaving it to fall into the dark pit. A place where it may never be found again. Getting hot under the collar, Spandam turned to the Straw Hats but noticed that one had vanished. Or did he? Had enough to see yet, Spanda? The man himself shrieked like a woman when Luffy appeared on his balcony. We are not scared of you. He is not scared of you. Luffy pointed towards Franky. Ready to fight some flesh to bruise. And she is not scared of you. Everyone turned to see that Robin was no longer crying but glaring at the man on the ground. Oh yeah? I have the one thing that will. Spandam scrambled to get back up and reached in his pocket for something, only to not find it. You are such a naughty little boy. Swiping something dangerous to all such as this right under your boss's noses, saying that it was gift from a certain admiral. Luffy had an interesting expression of scolding and seriousness as he held what could only be a Den Mushi, transponder snail, but made entirely out of gold. Just one press of this button and this island itself will be erased. Not even the Gorosei, 5-star elders, could have a say in that. We don't want to drop one of their bombs on their own backyard. Now were you? CP9 widened their eyes. This was a big deal. That small golden snail could have gone off with their chief's trigger finger and they will have to survive an attack intended to sink an entire island. They were embarrassed by their superior. But now, they were backing off with a glare. Spandam just ignored them and reached for a weapon that had on his back when he first went out on the balcony, one that Luffy eyed with interest. You are a nice sword. Luffy spoke before suddenly stretching his leg to kick Spandam away. This caused the cowardly weakling to lose his grip on Funkfried and the sword was grabbed by the straw hat wearing pirate. And once that happened, everyone could have sworn to see an aura around both the sword and the pirate. And these different colored auras then meet and merged. Welcome aboard. The next moment, Luffy turned to see the same coward with Robin being dragged like a common prisoner. Who, the captain said deeply, said that you can leave. Luffy vanished in a blur which got Lucci to vanish too. The very next second, the rest of CP9 saw that Lucci tried to hold the bull by the horns that was Luffy, only for Spandam to be hit by a shockwave emerging from Lucci's back. This wasn't enough to knock out that coward, and while he was getting, Luffy spoke. Robin, once these punks are finished, I promise that you will never be a prisoner again. The young woman nodded and Spandam dragged her away for real. The other CP9 members got ready to gang on the intruder that Lucci was still trying to subdue, yet. Everyone. Luffy spoke softly yet strongly, which got the entire crew to appear at once. Go all out and gives these jerks a real bad day. Judging by the sparkles in their eyes and the malicious expressions, the Straw Hats were going to have some fun today. Had enough to see yet, Spanda? The man himself shrieked like a woman when Luffy appeared on his balcony. We are not scared of you. He is not scared of you. Luffy pointed towards Franky. Ready to fight some flesh to bruise. And she is not scared of you. Everyone turned to see that Robin was no longer crying but glaring at the man on the ground. Oh yeah? I have the one thing that will. Spandam scrambled to get back up and reached in his pocket for something, only to not find it. You are such a naughty little boy. Swiping something dangerous to all such as this right under your boss's noses, saying that it was gift from a certain admiral. Luffy had an interesting expression of scolding and seriousness as he held what could only be a Den Mushi, transponder snail, but made entirely out of gold. Just one press of this button and this island itself will be erased. Not even the Gorosei, 5-star elders, could have a say in that. We don't want to drop one of their bombs on their own backyard. Now were you? CP9 widened their eyes. This was a big deal. That small golden snail could have gone off with their chief's trigger finger and they will have to survive an attack intended to sink an entire island. They were embarrassed by their superior. But now, they were backing off with a glare. Spandam just ignored them and reached for a weapon that had on his back when he first went out on the balcony, one that Luffy eyed with interest. "You are a nice sword." Luffy spoke before suddenly stretching his leg to kick Spandam away. This caused the cowardly weakling to lose his grip on Funkfried and the sword was grabbed by the straw hat wearing pirate. And once that happened, everyone could have sworn to see an aura around both the sword and the pirate. And these different colored auras then meet and merged. Welcome aboard. The next moment, Luffy turned to see the same coward with Robin being dragged like a common prisoner. "Who?" the captain said deeply, "said that you can leave." Luffy vanished in a blur which got Lucci to vanish too. The very next second, the rest of CP9 saw that Lucci tried to hold the bull by the horns that was Luffy, only for Spandam to be hit by a shockwave emerging from Lucci's back. This wasn't enough to knock out that coward, and while he was getting, Luffy spoke. "Robin, once these punks are finished, I promise that you will never be a prisoner again." The young woman nodded and Spandam dragged her away for real. The other CP9 members got ready to gang on the intruder that Lucci was still trying to subdue, yet. "Everyone." Luffy spoke softly yet strongly, which got the entire crew to appear at once. "Go all out and gives these jerks a real bad day." Judging by the sparkles in their eyes and the malicious expressions, the Straw Hats were going to have some fun today. "Hey you," Luffy then spoke, facing Fukuro. The large owl-looking man with a child's voice stiffened. "You have this handy trick. You can measure brute strength of others, even yourself somehow." Fukuro broke into a sweat and nodded. "Good, now brace. I don't play gentle with killers." It was a split second and Fukuro felt that his body went on autopilot before he was hit with a single blow that's so strong, it rippled through his large body and created a hole in the wall facing his back. "Take your time. I will be a few floors below," Luffy spoke again in this eerily cheerful tone before slamming his fist straight down, destroying the floor beneath himself and Lucci. "Have fun," Luffy shouted while he dived down and literally dragged Lucci down by the leg. Did that pirate runt just totaled the blabbermouth, with ease? Jabra may have hated the large man for his loose lips but still respected Fukuro as a fellow member of CP9 and a master of Rokushiki, 6 powers. It really shook him to see Luffy finish him off easily. "Focus, Jabra. We have a job to do." Kaku spoke calmly but Jabra could smell the sweat dripping down his neck and said nothing. He just got his stance ready for the Straw Hats, still in the office and ready to start the battle when the pile of bricks made way for Fukuro to emerge. But he was looking like shit. His clothes were dusty and blackened as the bruises that looked painful. Not to mention the coughed up blood with each breath taken in. His cough is power level is, Fukuro felt closer to fainting with every word but not before, his power level is 17,000. That echoed throughout the tower once the owl-looking man finally lost conscious and finally became silent. None of the CP9 or Straw Hats could think of anything else than someone proclaiming Luffy's power level. XXXXX down below, Luffy was still dragging along Lucci's leg and whipped the killer into a pile of crates. "Now that was fun, won't you say, or are you scared of heights, kitty?" Luffy was still talking in a sadistically cheerful tone and his only answer was that pile erupting. Out of it came a hulking figure that resembled a walking tiger. "You Straw Hats came to our doorstep, knock down the doors to justice and make 5 years of undercover go to waste. You shall know the power of dark justice." It was Lucci alright, by the voice but Luffy wasn't scared. "What's more to see? All you are is a killer and a pawn who has no life. That is the injustice here," Luffy said with a shrug and a slow shake of the head at how sad his opponent looked to him. "It was only after you killed 500 guards did others know who you are. Before then, you were just a nobody." Luffy then smirked with a malicious glint in his eyes, one that is going to pay for bullying Robin. Lucci felt like staring the devil in the face once Luffy spoke, yet still readied himself to fight. "Soru, shave." Lucci vanished from the naked eye and made his way for an ambush on Luffy but his body suddenly gotten heavy and slow. His vision was extra blurry as if the image was washed with a splash of water. When Lucci tried to swipe at Luffy with his claw, his prey moved his arm to match Lucci's. The impact practically rippled throughout his body, which only made the sensations worse. Rankyaku, storm leg, Lucci still ignored it and used one of his legs to swipe at Luffy from the distance. Yet Luffy casually avoided it and they both noticed that the airblade couldn't even leave a scratch on the wall behind the pirate captain. Shigen, finger pistol. Lucci tried another technique but to his dismay, that thrust of his finger couldn't even put a dent in the floor where Luffy was just standing on. "Wah. What's the matter? Feeling weak, dizzy, drowsy? Was it something you drank before we came in knocking?" Luffy mocked Lucci. "Good boys do their homework, and you have been naughty." Luffy spoke to Lucci like a nanny scolding a little kid who tried to get out of his schoolwork. All the while, the pirate captain took out both of his blades, swinging each in hand expertly. "Now show me the real power of CP9 because I am already disappointed." XXXXX in the long spiral staircase, a certain pathetic coward was running as if he just saw the devil and he dragging along someone like it was a trash bag. "This is crazy." Those idiot killers better rid me of those pirates or else I will lose my promotion. Spanda screamed like a girl while Robin only felt the pain of every stone step that didn't even chip off the sea stone, sea prism stone, handcuffs. And as that moron kept it up, Robin thought to herself, this is nothing compared to what I went through in the last 20 years. Please hurry Luffy, before I am taken to the gates. XXXXX back in the office. It looked like a typhoon had gone through. After Luffy broke through the floor and dragged Lucci down, the rest of the Straw Hats let themselves loose like a herd of mad cattle out of their pen. A slugfest ensured, and to the naked eye, it was difficult to see who was fighting whom. Franky was going to join in on the action when Luffy gave the go signal. Now, he is just hiding behind a wall with sweat drops down his face and doubts in his head. MN for me. As if to be answered, a portion of the wall near Franky was shattered by a body bullet. Franky noticed that it was the sole female of CP9. Looking into the hole, Franky could have sworn to see a gang of Amazons, not just yet, or maybe a squadron of Valkyries. And of course, Nami was leading the charge of the other woman Straw Hats. Franky could have sworn to see lighting settle around her fist and even spark out of her eyes. Don't think that I haven't noticed how you stared at our captain. The sarcasm was practically oozing out of Nami's mouth, but she spoke that word with real venom. It was one way to speak for the rest of the girls without singling herself out as Luffy's girlfriend. Poor Khalifa just groaned and struggled to even adjust her position on the rubble that used to be a wall. Yet that was for naught when a woman's hand clutched her head in a death grip. We are not done yet, bitch. Franky knew that women have this thing they can use to scare men into falling in line, but now he will be traumatized after the female Straw Hats were done. In the hallways, a fight had drifted away, and it was clear to see that it was the reject Nero playing cat and mouse chase with what appears to be an oversized wolf in human clothing. They tell me you drowned, and I see you siding with these scumbags. How low can you fall? Yet despite the deadly odds against him, Nero kept bouncing around and still using his trusty pistols to keep some distance between him and Jabra. Let's just say that the captain can be quite persuasive and I couldn't refuse his kindness, Nero said, and then dodged a jab charge by Jabra, something that shocked the latter. And in the short time we had, he helped me make a huge leap ahead. But I am not doing this to beat you. Of course, a worm like you couldn't win. Jabra grinned but still wondered why Nero was still smirking. What? I can't beat you. By that emphasis, Jabra felt beads of sweat drip down his neck. But they can. Following the pointer finger, Jabra turned to a certain blonde chef and a certain biker-dressed gunslinger. And both of them grew an aura of power and ferocity. Almost a pair of alpha predators staring down a cocky beta bullying one of their omegas. Shit. Jabra could only speak when he felt a bomb set off on his chest while a mean leg snapped his face across. That last one was strong enough to break some cheekbones and send Jabra face first into a wall on the other side of the tower. But before he could get his bearings back, the sound of a cannonball launching from the cannon was heard before that same wall shattered. Frank just looked at the hole with his pistol smoking. Get out of that, if you can. That was all he had to say. Meanwhile, in another section of the balcony floor of the tower, the sounds of blades meetings blades echoed. You are not too shabby. I hadn't had a match in swords in forever. Kaku was practically dancing with twin reverse blades against Zoro's Santoryu, 3 sword style, using his own form that he calls Yantoryu, 4 sword style, one where he comes his 2 steel blades with Rankyaku techniques. You and your flattery are just disgusting. The man I hope one day best will never stomp as low as you. Zoro was gritting his teeth on his 3rd sword more than ever after hearing Kaku treat this so casually. And I also wish to stay true to my promise to my captain, who was trained by Mihawk himself. That caused Kaku to briefly copy a goldfish and tried to use Soru to get out of the range of fire, but Zoro was easy to lose as a bloodhound trailing his prey. Too bad for Zoro, and especially for Kaku, someone was already at that spot and swung a pair of familiar finger blades. I always thought I was the fastest man there was until I met the boy, who will be my captain. And I got to say that this is quite fun. Kuro mused before launching off that wall and chased Kaku as well. While Zoro preferred raw strength and fine skill, he never liked the Rankyaku form of Rokushiki, 6 powers. Only the Soru, the Geppo, Moonwalk, and the Tekkai, Iron Body, forms grabbed his attention. Kuro, on the other hand, liked speed as well as strength. He loved to outrun his enemies rather than overpower and outlast them. However, he does have strength in spades that was necessary to obtain his once feared speed and the use of his signature weapons. Not just Soru and Geppo, the mastermind wished to learn Kami-e, paper art, and Rankyaku. All this amounted to Kaku trying to take on both Zoro and Kuro. But it was a losing battle for the honest killer, as his material blades were occupied with Zoro while his wind blades were all countered by Kuro's. This means that Kaku will have to defend himself against the Neko no Te, cat claws. Tekkai offers good defense, as long as the user moves as much as a stone statue. At last, the sound of a leg bone snapped in half was heard, followed by the sound of a man screaming at the top of his lungs. Bastard! Kaku dropped his weapons and dropped to the floor, glaring at the two pirates looking down on him. He looked like a man gone mad. "We're pirates, not priests. I thought you were smarter than that," Kuro responded. "And another thing is," Zoro spoke before both he and Kuro vanished for a split second before reappearing behind Kaku's fallen form. "You were also too slow." Kaku could only cough off blood after hearing those last words before the pain surged throughout and his vision turned to black. "And I seriously think that we are overdoing this. A little," Zoro also said, looking around to see that there's barely anyone else left to challenge them. Which includes that weirdo in the crazy hair, tied up in such and covered in painfully looking hoof marks. "Only a little," the doctor, in his master form, said to add to the statement. When everyone arrived on the scene, they all had one thing to say. "Only a little." XXXXX outside the tower, there was a large stone bridge with a gate on the far end. And it was in the eyes of a madman sprinting forward as if it was an oasis in a desert. All the while, he was still dragging along his captive with no care. "There it is. As soon as I, the hero of the world, set a foot through that gate, I will get promoted and get to slay the devil once and for all." Spandam laughed desirously with every step he took. Of course, he ignored the looks of pain and despair on Robin's face and the glares from the Marines that appeared on the bridge. The only thing in his eyes was that gate, and once he got a foot in distance, he witnessed the fist of a giant destroy it. Screaming like a girl and landing back on his sorry ass, Spandam was scared witless at the sight. "That is as far as you go, coward." Spandam felt a weight in his pants when he heard that voice, and sure enough, Luffy appeared before the witnesses and without a single scratch. The Marines, for some reason, were not panicking nor shocked. They just stayed where they stood. Robin, on the other hand, looked like a little kid watching her idol in action. Once he got his bearings, Spandam turned to the Marines nearby. "How are you still alive? Lucci should have killed you." As if on cue, another weight hit Spandam. All he had to do and look down to see it was the ace of CP9 himself. And Lucci looked like he was shoved through a meat grinder. His sorry body was littered with ugly bruises and dozens of cuts that just burned on his skin. Crocodile was someone that had to answer to the world government for his corruption, so I had to make sure that he was still conscious. But not him. Luffy spoke to answer a question that wasn't asked, but it still made clear on one thing. Luffy is more of a pirate than he lets on. Pretty cunning of him. Not to mention, should you look close enough, Lucci had the look in his eyes as if the devil faced and destroyed him. "Kill him, now." Spandam had finally lost it and said the same thing over and over again, like a broken record. But the Marines wouldn't obey him while Luffy just walked past them with a key in his hand. A key that unlocked the Sea Stone. While Robin was rubbing her wrists from having the cuffs on for a long time, Luffy's low voice got her attention. She shivered from the determination in his eyes. "Never again will you be a prisoner. I will make that promise with my life, understand?" Robin smiled and nodded. Then Luffy got to his feet and faced a Marine soldier who was trying to ignore the ranting Spandam. "Do you have it?" This surprised Robin when that same soldier nodded and took out a hand sack from somewhere, one that was stained on the bottom with something crimson. Robin wondered why she didn't notice the stench coming from it when Luffy retrieved it from the Marine. "Hey, you idiot." Luffy spoke to Spandam with some kind of force behind those words that got the attention of a man that clearly has gone mad. "This is something that Robin and you need to see. She might like to see but you won't." Luffy then grabbed the stained bottom and allowed what was inside to fall out, tumbling on the stone bridge before settling down. Spandam looked dead with a face covered with sweat and fear, while Robin covered her mouth with her hand with fear as well, but also shock of the discovery kind. On the bridge, uglier and smeller than a rock covered in algae, was the head of a man. The neck was cut clean, in one stroke, and all the blood had already dried up around the stump. The hair on top and in the slick beard were also stained with blood and unkempt. Finally, the expression was one of pain and terror. "Lady and gents, I present the man who was truly responsible for the destruction of the scholarly island of Ohara, Spandam." The Marines glared at the dead head with hatred while their boss was really about to faint and already was foaming at the mouth. Robin, on the other hand, was stuck between being frightened by the gruesome sight or relived that the man who destroyed her home island had been killed in a painful way indeed. That was when she noticed a revolver being handed over to her by Luffy. "I had most of the work done, but it needs a finishing touch. While the rest of the body was shark bait, you have the right to erase what is left." Robin couldn't believe how things turned up. The Straw Hats showing up and not having fear in their eyes when the flag was burned had made her heart aflutter. But the captain had taken out the ace of CP9, stopped the idiot director in his tracks and brought the head of the man she hated the most, at her feet. When Robin heard Luffy's words, she took the revolver firmly in hand, steeling herself and aimed the pistol at the rotting human head, and pulled the trigger. The blood and gore and bone bits scattered everywhere, yet none landed on Robin nor Luffy. Most of it littered on the idiot just kneeling there with little to no life left in his eyes. Finally, "The dead don't feel pain." Luffy spoke up again and directed Robin to little coward on the ground. "But for what he did to you today, why not?" What followed was a barrage of gunshots and screams of pain. But that was short-lived before the sound of an empty gun were heard. Robin was still reeling in the adrenaline of shooting a still target. Enough. Luffy placed hand on the empty pistol that Robin was still clutching with her hands. His voice was both stern yet caring. Then he turned to the same Marines that hadn't budged from their positions. I trust that the deal is still in effect. Our lips are sealed, Sir Luffy. One of them answered and the others picked up the heavily wounded bodies of both Spandam and Lucci. Judging by how the bodies are dragged away like potato sacks, that says a lot about how the Marines care about them. Because after today, we quit. On the bridge, uglier and smeller than a rock covered in algae, was the head of a man. The neck was cut clean, in one stroke. And all the blood had already dried up around the stump. The hair on top and in the slick beard were also stained with blood and unkempt. Finally, the expression was one of pain and terror. Lady and gents, I present the man who was truly responsible for the destruction of the scholarly island of Ohara, Spandam. The Marines glared at the dead head with hatred while their boss was really about to faint and already was foaming at the mouth. Robin, on the other hand, was stuck between being frightened by the gruesome sight or relived that the man who destroyed her home island had been killed in a painful way indeed. That was when she noticed a revolver being handed over to her by Luffy. I had most of the work done but it needs a finishing touch. While the rest of the body was shark bait, you have the right to erase what is left. Robin couldn't believe how things turned up. The Straw Hats showing up and not having fear in their eyes when the flag was burned had made her heart aflutter. But the captain had taken out the ace of CP9, stopped the idiot director in his tracks and brought the head of the man she hated the most, at her feet. When Robin heard Luffy's words, she took the revolver firmly in hand, steeling herself and aimed the pistol at the rotting human head, and pulled the trigger. The blood and gore and bone bits scattered everywhere yet none landed on Robin nor Luffy. Most of it littered on the idiot just kneeling there with little to no life left in his eyes. Finally, the dead don't feel pain. Luffy spoke up again and directed Robin to little coward on the ground. But for what he did to you today, why not? What followed was a barrage of gunshots and screams of pain. But that was short-lived before the sound of an empty gun were heard. Robin was still reeling in the adrenaline of shooting a still target. Enough. Luffy placed hand on the empty pistol that Robin was still clutching with her hands. His voice was both stern yet caring. Then he turned to the same Marines that hadn't budged from their positions. I trust that the deal is still in effect. Our lips are sealed, Sir Luffy. One of them answered and the others picked up the heavily wounded bodies of both Spandam and Lucci. Judging by how the bodies are dragged away like potato sacks, that says a lot about how the Marines care about them. Because after today, we quit. I still don't believe it. That's the 100th time you said that, kitty cat. Luffy chuckled as he relaxed on the ship railing. Besides, we did come on a runaway train and obviously, we can't get back the same way. Nami nuzzled in her boyfriend's neck even more. But to give us one of their navy ships? She tried to scream out her point but her voice was too relaxed. All because you are one of the Shichibuki, 7 royal warlords. I wish these things will happen more often. Nami then gave her boyfriend a quick kiss, and I can't believe what you did for Robin back there. You're one of a kind. Just the kind of guy for the best crew one can ask for in the whole world. Luffy responded and cuddled with Nami while everyone else enjoyed a relaxing trip after the adrenaline trip to Enies' lobby. Robin, on the other hand, was wondering why she wasn't feeling jealous of the couple and instead a longing to be in his arms even more. By the way, Luffy spoke to break the ice, turning to address the passengers relaxing on the ship. Thanks again for looking after Isa and keeping an eye on Umi. Luffy spoke to Kokura who just nodded. It was a cute sight actually to see a little girl clutching onto her adopted older brother and captain while the sea snake from the East Blue was enjoying the rubbing from the captain's girlfriend. And I know that it wasn't appropriate at the time. Are you going to tell my crew about it or should I? It was pretty vague and while almost everyone was confused, Kokura just laughed. Go ahead, boy. You're the one who knows all. Luffy sighed with annoyance at that title. Everyone just turned to hear what the big deal is about. Have most of you heard of mermaids? Various reactions were seen, from shocked to puzzled. Well, they're as real as Fishman. If that is what you are wondering. A few of the males were excited to hear that the beauties of the sea are indeed real. I brought this up because the conductor of the Puffing Tom is a mermaid. This caused the air to crack like a sheet of glass under pressure when the audience turned to Kokura again who was still laughing like the drunk she was. Even Chimmy and her pet were shocked. Mind your manners because this is no lie. I lost a whole day's meals when I first learned of this. Luffy commented while most rushed to either off the deck or over the railing to hide their upheaval. Even Nami had to when it was too much, but she appreciated the nice and slow backrub from her boyfriend. We can tell the guys later that they can repress this impression once you meet a real young mermaid. Never before did these pirates wish so strongly that they were back in Water 7. XXXXX they reached the haven for carpenters in no time, where almost everyone was awaiting them. It was a good thing that the Straw Hats had used their portable Den Den Mushi, transponder snail, to inform Iceberg that they were loaned a marine ship. Hello Mayor, How's the progress on our ships? Luffy asked as he disembarked right as their lone ship arrived at the docks. The look on Iceberg's face was of both annoyance and yet amusement. You people sure went above and beyond, and behind my back to actually hire Franky to work on your vessels. Just how did you convince him? The mayor asked, and Luffy smirked in a way that spoke a lot actually, like he had done this before, and while not proud, he didn't regret his actions either. We all learn how difficult it actually is to leave our dreams behind. As a dreamer myself, I will never laugh nor leave that man as he is, just rotting away hoping to be forgotten. Luffy responded, and Iceberg felt like making up to his old fellow student and friend about what the mayor said in their last encounter in private. But never mind that, the world government is having its hands full back there, so I say it is time. Luffy dramatically took in a deep breath and shouted to the heavens. To party? Yeah, XXXXX later. Robin, with a champagne glass in hand, felt that the party was becoming a little too chaotic for her taste. Finding a spot near a rather unspecific stone wall, she leaned to relax and was about to drink again when Nico Robin. That voice was as cold as the ice she felt on the other side. It was Kuzan. You truly are a woman from hell. You dare defy the one who helped you escape from Ohara as it was sinking, make a deal with the CP9, have those pirates come to the government's backyard, and worst of all, they got away scot-free. What is your agenda with all this? Childhood trauma started to surface and Robin couldn't get the words out of her mouth. You know what really gets me hot under the collar? Robin didn't even want to point out the irony in that statement. It is because the giant that was in the Marines before he was kicked out and became friends with you, Jaguar D. Saul, was also my best friend. Robin took a hand to her mouth at that fact. I respected how Saul was better than the rest of the Marines. He will never harm an innocent soul, which is more than any of us can say about the rest of the Navy. He had a heart bigger than any battleship and bigger than himself, so why did he give up his life for you? Because he was a holder of 8 deep. Robin finally spoke, and Kuzan was puzzled. In my travels, I have read in several books which all said the same vague message, that those with the will of deep will have the courage and selflessness to change the world. And that is why I want to be free, for Saul's sacrifice. Any my captain's heart too. Robin thought to herself, which was rather inappropriate when Old man Garp is a holder of 8D, and he became the hero of the Marines. And Saul ended up dead. Kuzan muttered. Just what does that demonic middle name have to do with any of this? My captain is also a holder of the D, he told me that himself. This time, Kuzan was at loss for words. And already, he has proven that he has what it takes to protect those he cares about, those he loves, because he has a D in his name. We have a holder of the D in our ranks? Robin was frightened at the tone of anger in a man that was as cold and indifferent as ice, pun intended. What are those old bags of bones thinking? Robin then felt a terrible chill coming from the other side of the wall and even made white breath. Doesn't matter, because you just left the company and protection of your captain, which means that I will have to take you in. In that split second, Robin felt the same fear as 20 years ago and was about to run again when Hey! The conversation was cut suddenly when Kuzan felt like the devil was staring down on him, and the feeling and the face were familiar. The lanky man then felt something hit his backside and sent him to his knees forward. I noticed that Robin wasn't at the party, and where do I find her? Being harassed by you. Again. Kuzan didn't need to see the other side to know that the young captain was responsible. And I wasn't going to be noisy and barge in, but you just threatened her. Right after Robin was freed from you jerks, I couldn't help myself. As he heard Luffy's voice, dark and deep, Kuzan turned to notice a nasty spider web crack in that wall, yet it didn't collapse. I made a promise to Robin, and I will protect her better than you ever can, Kuzan. That was when Kuzan noticed something thrown from the other side of the wall, and he caught it by reflex. It was the same golden Den Mushi, transponder snail, that Spandam somehow had and was stolen by Luffy. Now you take that tiny time bomb, leave us alone, and I won't let your bosses know you letting it get stolen from you. Or else, they will demote you to chore boy. Kuzan shivered at that title, which was colder to him than any ice he can conjure up. The thought of never-ending work was a nightmare to a man who loves to relax. He said nothing, tucked away the little annihilation button, and vanished in a burst of ice. On the other side of the wall, Luffy was staring at the wall that he just punched with a powerful punch that was held back still to not destroy the piece of property. That was not what Luffy was worried about. Turning to face Robin, who had already dropped her glass, he pressed his hat against his face. Sorry Robin, that was not my place, and Luffy nearly lost his hold on his hat when the woman in question charged into his chest. Why? Robin spoke in a soft tone. Why are you fighting for me? No one is stupid enough to challenge an admiral in the world government, just for me. Luffy started to rub the top of her head. I am a man. We're supposed to be that stupid, Luffy said in a sheepish tone. Besides, I don't mind. Every man worth his salt wants to help out a beautiful woman with her troubles. Luffy then gently cupped Robin on the cheeks and moved her face to his attention. You are no longer a woman on the run. You are free, and no one will ever use you again. I promise. Almost instantly, Robin was brought to tears. Tears not of pain or sadness but overwhelming happiness. Yet the shocker came when she suddenly leaned forward, kissing Luffy on the lips. After a moment that seemed like forever, Luffy managed to separate his lips from Robin's with his pointer finger. Well, I didn't mind that, I already have a girlfriend, Robin. Yes, he does. Robin felt like she was truly frozen solid while Luffy braced for the banshee that had plenty to say to both of them. Indeed, Nami looked like she was going to bring a thunderstorm to the one who kissed her boyfriend. Now why don't we take this away from any prying eyes? Nami, instead of sending down bolts of thunder, just grab the wrists of both Luffy and Robin, dragging them away to where they will definitely get an earful. Or will they? XXXXX. Meanwhile, damn that kid. Kuzan was muttering to himself the whole trip from that wall to where he parked his trusty bike. Usually he was as chill as the ice he commands, but being showed up and threatened to told on by the same boy was rubbing him the wrong way. What kind of guts does he have to boss me around? Even if he is the Fist's grandson. Once the large, lanky man found his bike, Kuzan started to ride on a thin streak of ice. While on the way of leaving Water 7, he took out that same golden Den Mushi Luffy, returned to him. To think that this little thing is the reason that Mugiwara, Straw Hat, is still one of our government dogs. Just what kind of kid is he? Kuzan didn't expect an answer and just rode his bike along the ice streak, wondering what trouble will come next for the Marines and probably the whole world as well. Why? Robin spoke in a soft tone. Why are you fighting for me? No one is stupid enough to challenge an admiral in the world government, just for me. Luffy started to rub the top of her head. I am a man. We're supposed to be that stupid, Luffy said in a sheepish tone. Besides, I don't mind. Every man worth his salt wants to help out a beautiful woman with her troubles. Luffy then gently cupped Robin on the cheeks and moved her face to his attention. You are no longer a woman on the run. You are free and no one will ever use you again. I promise. Almost instantly, Robin was brought to tears. Tears not of pain or sadness but overwhelming happiness. Yet the shocker came when she suddenly leaned forward, kissing Luffy on the lips. After a moment that seemed like forever, Luffy managed to separate his lips from Robin's with his pointer finger. Well, I didn't mind that, I already have a girlfriend, Robin. Yes, he does. Robin felt like she was truly frozen solid while Luffy braced for the banshee that had plenty to say to both of them. Indeed, Nami looked like she was going to bring a thunderstorm to the one who kissed her boyfriend. Now why don't we take this away from any prying eyes? Nami, instead of sending down bolts of thunder, just grab the wrists of both Luffy and Robin, dragging them away to where they will definitely get an earful. Or will they? XXXXX. Meanwhile, damn that kid. Kuzan was muttering to himself the whole trip from that wall to where he parked his trusty bike. Usually he was as chill as the ice he commands, but being showed up and threatened to told on by the same boy was rubbing him the wrong way. What kind of guts does he have to boss me around? Even if he is the Fist's grandson. Once the large, lanky man found his bike, Kuzan started to ride on a thin streak of ice. While on the way of leaving Water 7, he took out that same golden Den Mushi Luffy, returned to him. To think that this little thing is the reason that Mugiwara, Straw Hat, is still one of our government dogs. Just what kind of kid is he? Kuzan didn't expect an answer and just rode his bike along the ice streak, wondering what trouble will come next for the Marines and probably the whole world as well. The sun's rays pierced through the bindings and landed on a certain black-haired pirate that was napping away in his comfy, warm bed after a long night of partying. He groaned when the light woke him up and got a bit of a headache. He can't get drunk, but exhaustion is no joke. But his mood lifted when he noticed who else was under the covers. One of them was a ginger with her head on his shoulder while a brunette was on his chest. Luffy decided to wake up his girlfriend in a better way than the sun did him, with his finger rubbing around the ear. That sent a shiver down her spine and Nami gently woke up to see the love of her life smile down on her. Morning kitty cat. I hope you had fun. Nami said not a word and lifted herself up to reveal that she was as bare as she was born. If you want the steamy details, then you will have to wait for that chapter in the side story. She playfully grasped Luffy by his neck and stretched it to reach face to face, so Nami was able to smooch her boyfriend good. I had the best night of my life, my king. As long as you stick to your word, I am sticking to you. Luffy nuzzled in with Nami, who cooed at the sight. Then they noticed that the other woman, as bare as the first, under the covers was stirring. Nami gently released her boyfriend's elastic neck back to normal length. No reason to scare Robin, not after how the poor woman was last night. Thankfully, that bullet was dodged and she opened her eyes to the man and woman who took her into their bedroom for some fun. Morning Robin, you're looking good, Luffy said and got a bit closer to Robin's ear. How was your night? The well-aged woman started the tear right before giving her own passionate kiss to Luffy. And while Nami wished that she was the woman in the picture, she settled to relax on her boyfriend and gave Robin a back rub. Please, Robin whispered after releasing the kiss and pressing her face into the sturdy chest, like a girl fearing to lose yet again. Please let me your girlfriend too. I love you, Luffy. Both pirate captain and navigator looked at each other for support. This was a fragile stage and they can't afford to back out nor make any mistake. Luffy decided to gently move Robin's face to be level with Nami's, the latter somehow knowing what the lucky man had in mind. "Robin, we talked about the whole thing last night and we came with a solution." The woman herself looked up with hopeful eyes, ears wide open. "You are not going to be my girlfriend," and before Robin could break out in tears in this rejection, Nami moved to give Robin a kiss of her own. "You're going to be ours." But, I. Robin couldn't process this just yet, but a head rub calmed her down a bit. "Does this mean that I will dating Nami too?" Luffy continued to tease Robin with a rub between foreheads this time. "It means that you are to be lovers with not just my boyfriend but also when we are alone together," Nami responded. "I already have plenty of friends on the ship that I can call my older sisters, including Nijiko. But there was just something about you that attracted me a bit." Nami then got close to Robin's other ear, and secretly, "Luffy loves to watch women play like him and I do." Robin felt her face get red hot but didn't even make a peep. After a moment, she embraced both Nami and Luffy with fresh tears of happiness. "Thank you. I love you. I love you all." Luffy and Nami returned the gesture. "We will shower you with all the love you can ask for, Robin, and I promise that you will never be all alone again. Ever." Luffy closed off the romantic morning and settled down with a silent group hug. XXXXX later that morning, "Come on, open up." Every boy and girl watching couldn't help but feel a bit jealous, some more than others, to watch such a powerful pirate be fed by his girls like an infant. Nami shared a tangerine from one of her trees that were relocated from off the ship, while Robin was just as playful with some coffee cake. Sanji felt like a punch to gut when he was asked to make some to go with Robin's morning beverage. Most of the crewmates, on the other hand, felt either envious or awed by how lucky Luffy was to be affectionate with Robin as much as with Nami. They could have sworn that all three of them spent the night in the same bed. How did he do it was a mystery that the men and a couple of women wished they could solve. Chopper and Iso were just confused, while the literal elephant in the room, the sword which ate a devil fruit, Funkfried, just ate without a care in the world. Then the ice was broken. "Seriously, big brother, how are you so happy today?" Chopper came up and asked in a pure, innocent tone, an adorable face only a little kid can make. Iso was standing on the other side of the couple, with the same expression. "Is Robin going to be our new big sister?" she asked in a cute voice that almost made everyone gush if they weren't still a bit embarrassed about the first question. It is always quite awkward for a grown-up to explain to a kid where babies come from. It is something that we all go through, something that compels us to look for someone to spend our lives with. Luffy responded, and his crew were getting a little nervous about what he is going to say next. "It's called." Thankfully, the awkward moment was lifted when the captain stopped in his speech and faced the front wall with the look of sensing danger. The very next second, everyone did too. The aura of hostility mixed in with deadly power heading straight for them. It got the crew on guard and scared both Chopper and Iso to hide behind Luffy. Scatter. Using no time at all, the Straw Hats got some distance from the wall just in time for it to be caved in. Like when a rhino comes in charging. And it could have only been one person. "Brad. What the hell is wrong with you?" "YTS, the fist. Monkey D. Garp." And he looked ready to crack in some heads too. "Yell outside if it will make you feel better, Gramps." Luffy spoke calmly in spite of that earth-shaking voice. "I was just raised this way and—" Garp wasn't going to take the civil way and was about to let loose one of his infamous punches, but it never met its mark. "Gramps, that was some good food you were about to waste. And you wonder where I get such bad manners from." Luffy spoke with complete confidence, and it showed in the face of Garp. "Speaking of which, why you blocked T the fist of love?" Garp looked shocked while struggling to move his fist that was still in his grandson's grasp. The Straw Hats heard gasps and jaws dropping, and turned around to see a squadron of Marines. No doubt under Garp's wing, and the sight of their superior's punch being stopped was unbelievable. "I might have let you discipline me as a kid when you dropped me in a ravine just to climb back up again, leave me to survive in the jungles at night, and even when you tied a dozen balloons to my back. And I know, it was supposed to make me strong enough to be a Marine, shit and all." Everyone, even Nami, couldn't believe that the young captain was treated by his only family that way. Especially since it was something to say so casually. "But I wasn't going to let you make me a jungle animal that wasn't allowed to learn how to sail or even read a book." WHATT. This collective response shook the very earth and made the building behave as an earthquake had hit. Only Luffy was calm about it, only feeling slight pity for his grandpa when the former released the latter when his girlfriend sent the vice admiral himself flying. "How dare you treat my Luffy that way, old man?" Nami had lost any and all fear of the hero of the Marines, and grasped the old man by the collar with the look of the devil on her face. "And how do you expect my man to be a Marine when you won't let him learn how to sail? Are you trying to kill him?" Garp could only cry at how a woman about 5 times younger than him was so scary and that he was letting her reduce him to the level of a worm. And it finally stopped when Nami stopped in her fury, ranting, and let out a cute, an SXY, purr. "Thanks, kitty cat. I am over it now, so please let the miserable old man go. Please." Luffy petted his girlfriend's hair as if she was an actual house cat and even kissed her on the scalp. That did the trick. While the Marines were stiff about the whole thing, the Straw Hats were either grinning or twitching at the open affectionate tone of their demon of a captain. Both Chopper and Isa went like little kids to their parents kissing, gagging. "Hey Sanji, get all the bagels out of the kitchen. Gramps loves those." Luffy turned to his cook, whom had been stiff as a statue when he first learned that the captain had gotten another woman to shower him with affection while the blonde had none. When the cook didn't respond, a good wave of haki got him back into the kitchen. "Chopper, make sure that Gramps is not having a heart attack. He is still family, of course." The little reindeer quickly left the chair he was hiding behind in his reverse fashion, shifted into his human form, which startled the Marines, and helped the hero of the Marines into a chair. Once back in hybrid form, Chopper used the doctor's scope to check the heartbeat. "Now come and get this reunion rolling, crybaby and spoiled idiot." The Straw Hats heard a pair of groans yet no words of denial. None of the Marine soldiers seemed to be the ones offended until a couple of figures wearing different outfits came through the crowds. While most of the Straw Hats didn't recognize these two, Luffy was still smirking and Zoro scowled before widening his eyes. "You too?" "That's right, Zoro. Kobe, the crybaby, and Helmeppo, the ex-captain's son." Luffy clearly was enjoying the look on the swordsman's face. "They're the ones from Shelltown, where you and I first met. And I understand that the little girl Rika is serving patrons with her signature onigiri, rice balls." "You got it," the shorter one with the pink hair and large glasses responded. This was indeed Kobe. Due to the passage of time and Garp's training, Kobe has grown thinner and taller, standing close to Luffy in height. He has also gained a cross-shaped scar above his right eye. His hair has grown longer and shaggier. Kobe wears a standard-issue marine jacket, pants, and neckerchief as well as a brightly patterned bandana worn tied across his forehead. Kobe's glasses are still present, but he has adopted the habit of wearing them pushed up on his forehead, occasionally using them for reading. As for the other one, with a black visor and blonde hair, he was Helmeppo but much stiffer and sterner. He is wearing a white shirt with a pale green vest over it, purple pants, and black gloves. He also now has longer hair tied back into a ponytail as well as having a more muscular appearance compared to his original look. Zoro walked over, past the old crybaby and had a good look over the boy that once tormented him and ordered him to be killed for entertainment, breaking a promise. Helmeppo didn't say a word or fidget. "Okay." Zoro started after a bit. "I will admit that you did get a better mojo and you actually are training in those rare kukri knives. My father was a Marine but was disgraced. I intend to get where he couldn't and one day hunt him down." Helmeppo finally spoke and Zoro just grinned, even put an arm over the former's shoulders. "Make sure to make it hurt. I still hate him too," Zoro said, and when saw Helmeppo make a fist, the former bumped it with his own. This made quite the interesting sight of a pirate and a Marine getting along like a pair of boys had been friends for years. Not to mention that the usually gloomy and sometimes scary Zoro was both relaxed and enjoying himself. As for Kobe, all he did was walk up to Luffy and shook hands. The former still owned a bid to the pirate for setting things up that the little crybaby was rid of his cowardice, his past as a pirate cabin boy, and in exchange, was given a chance at his dream. Luffy even did it in one fell swoop. "Hey, brat," of course, the moment was too good to last when the old man finally got his bearings back together. What I want to say is, Garp was ready to march over to Luffy when Sanji came out with a mountain of fresh bagels. The old man started to drool at the sight, which got others to wonder how Luffy was related to a childish and reckless glutton. They tried to ignore the strange shiver down their spines, smile. It was rather disgusting to see dozens upon dozens of bagels getting gobbled down like a pack of hungry, wild boars. And when the plate was cleaned of the dough delights, a loud burp was heard. Ah, those were good. Judging by the round belly of his, anyone could guess that Garp enjoyed the bagels. Wait, I still haven't done the thing I came here for. Suddenly, Garp got up, lost the full gut and held up his grandson by the collar. Not that the latter was bothered by it. "How dare you attack Enies' lobby and make a mockery out of us by stealing one of our ships to hitch a ride home? I have taught you better than that." With a punch reeled in, everyone expected the pirate captain to be given a mean punch to the noggin. Except, Garp fell asleep, still in mid-swing. What the hell? No, your eyes are correct. He is always doing this. No wonder Luffy wasn't worried. He knew his own grandfather just enough to expect this. Yet the awkward sight was broken when Garp woke himself up again and noticed the stares. "Now you are quite done, Gramps, you can put me down." Luffy spoke with a deadpan tone that made the old man feel stupid, putting the former down gently this time. "Now you are going to remember what you wanted to bash my head in. You want to know how I knew in Logatown about Dragon." Luffy finished that, not with a smug grin or a deadpan frown. In fact, his face was near emotionless. It was hard to tell how the young captain thinks of the name. Garp, on his teeth as he recounted what happened at the last stop in the East Blue before Reverse Mountain. How he tried to get to Luffy and discipline his grandson on being a pirate instead of a Marine. Instead, he encountered his own flesh and blood. The real black sheep of the family. Then came Luffy's shout in the wind that caused the two adults to realize Luffy knew something he shouldn't have. Who is Dragon? Isa walked up to her adoptive older brother, feeling brave enough to walk up to the Marine that tried to harm Luffy but instead embarrassed himself. A person that is a big deal down here, Isa. Luffy spoke up. He is known to many as Dragon the Revolutionary. Next came the world shattering like glass. WHATT, the Marines, including Kobe and Helmeppo, as well the Straw Hats all fell to their behinds when they heard that name. Dragon, the founder and current leader of the Revolutionary Army. Everyone was especially shocked to hear that name, even Chopper. Yes, and now explain to me how the hell did you know who he was? Garp hated that everyone made a big deal about Dragon, right before they realized that both men were from the same family. I got it from you, was Luffy's response, and before Garp could deny it, to rephrase, my devil fruit allowed me to hear off your nosy mind, which told me the man in the cloak with tattoos on his face was Dragon. Of course, the Straw Hats were used to this while Garp grumbled something that was understandable. The rest of the Marines were in awe that such an ability existed. And yes, I also learned that Dragon is actually. Luffy started and left off to build up the tension, and Garp just gave up on responding right up to the big unveil. My father. WHATT, it was rather disgusting to see dozens upon dozens of bagels getting gobbled down like a pack of hungry, wild boars. And when the plate was cleaned of the dough delights, a loud burp was heard. Ah, those were good. Judging by the round belly of his, anyone could guess that Garp enjoyed the bagels. Wait, I still haven't done the thing I came here for. Suddenly, Garp got up, lost the full gut and held up his grandson by the collar. Not that the latter was bothered by it. How dare you attack Enies' lobby and make a mockery out of us by stealing one of our ships to hitch a ride home? I have taught you better than that. With a punch reeled in, everyone expected the pirate captain to be given a mean punch to the noggin. Except, Garp fell asleep, still in mid-swing. What the hell? No, your eyes are correct. He is always doing this. No wonder Luffy wasn't worried. He knew his own grandfather just enough to expect this. Yet the awkward sight was broken when Garp woke himself up again and noticed the stares. Now you are quite done, Gramps, you can put me down. Luffy spoke with a deadpan tone that made the old man feel stupid, putting the former down gently this time. Now you are going to remember what you wanted to bash my head in. You want to know how I knew in Logatown about Dragon. Luffy finished that, not with a smug grin or a deadpan frown. In fact, his face was near emotionless. It was hard to tell how the young captain thinks of the name. Garp, on the other hand, gritted his teeth as he recounted what happened at the last stop in the East Blue before Reverse Mountain. How he tried to get to Luffy and discipline his grandson on being a pirate instead of a marine. Instead, he encountered his own flesh and blood. The real black sheep of the family. Then came Luffy's shout in the wind that caused the two adults to realize Luffy knew something he shouldn't have. Who is Dragon? Isa walked up to her adoptive older brother, feeling brave enough to walk up to the Marine that tried to harm Luffy but instead embarrassed himself. A person that is a big deal down here, Isa. Luffy spoke up. He is known to many as Dragon the Revolutionary. Next came the world shattering like glass. WHATT, the Marines, including Kobe and Helmeppo, as well the Straw Hats all fell to their behinds when they heard that name. Dragon, the founder and current leader of the Revolutionary Army. Everyone was especially shocked to hear that name, even Chopper. Yes, and now explain to me how the hell did you know who he was? Garp hated that everyone made a big deal about Dragon, right before they realized that both men were from the same family. I got it from you, was Luffy's response, and before Garp could deny it, to rephrase, my Akuma no Emi allowed me to hear off your nosy mind, which told me the man in the cloak with tattoos on his face was Dragon. Of course, the Straw Hats were used to this while Garp grumbled something that was understandable. The rest of the Marines were in awe that such an ability existed. And yes, I also learned that Dragon is actually. Luffy started and left off to build up the tension, and Garp just gave up on responding right up to the big unveil. My father. WHATT, your father is the single most wanted man in the world. Luffy sighed and rubbed his forehead. Clearly, he was having a headache from that racket. And I appreciate that none of you will speak a word of this, but yes, my father's name is Dragon. Luffy answered, but if you were wondering where he is and what he is doing, then you have wasted your time. He never even tried to show up in my life, not once. Then the young captain turned to his silent grandfather. I only called him by Dad, because I knew he will get into your face, and I wished that I saw your expression. Like a volcano about to erupt, Garp struggled to swallow his anger at Luffy's smug expression. Instead he growled out, just how did you get that annoying little trick to read our minds? Despite Garp trying to mutter under his breath, everyone heard that question and wanted to know too. Luffy sensed that, and rubbed his face again, for one thing and the umpteenth time. I don't read minds, the captain said with emphasis on those last 4 words while stretching his arm to retrieve a chair to sit in. And for those who are staring at me, I am willing to answer. Soon a crowd was forming with the Straw Hats and the Marines acting like little kids awaiting story time. If that shook them something bad, this does not leave this building. That's simple, good. It will be quite the scene, but everyone in attendance nodded their heads. They were a class of kids listening to their story with the promise of a cookie for each. Good. It all started over 10 years ago, when I first awakened my secondary Akuma no Mi, devil fruit, power. XXXXX flashback begins. What? 7-year-old Luffy was at the spot with the crate, the stolen bottle of sake and 3 sake cups. He was looking around him with eyes filled with fear and shock. Their session of becoming brothers was interrupted by a pack of wolves that thought Luffy, Ace and Sabo looked delicious. It must have been the sake. Instead of a feast for the canines, they laid on the ground and not even twitching. Judging by the bloodshot eyes and the drool and spit leaking out of their mouths, they were no better shape than being a vegetable. Nevertheless, this scared Luffy out of his wits. He tried to keep himself together, but the world was blurring and contorting all around him. It was like the vertigo effect was taking place, but it was something else entirely. All that mattered to the little boy was to get himself to the 2 boys before him. When he got to Ace, Luffy was distraught when he couldn't even feel the tip of his own fingers. What's wrong with me? Luffy could only grab the sides of his head in fear and frustration, mixed with shock and confusion. And while he was screaming, the rippling aura around him surrounded the entire island. People and animals felt the same effect, only stronger, to the point they couldn't get off the ground. Everywhere, bodies were laying down as if a plague had gone by. Even the birds and fish were affected. A few hours later, at the pier, a ship bearing the Jolly Roger arrived. Anchor, immediately, a man's voice was heard. Running on the plank cast on the railing was Shanks. While his crew docked their ship, the captain and his other notable crewmates scrambled with worried looks on their faces. Something had brought them back to the East Blue, something bad.
Shanks took his only hand to his forehead to ease his worries and reach out to where Luffy was. Emotions can still cause trouble for a master of hockey, even to one like him. Yet he was too good to waste time and found the little boy in no time. Too bad that he was deep in the jungle, which meant a long trek from the pier. Shanks shooed off and his crew didn't question it. Instead, half of them chased after their captain while the other half stayed to watch over the ship.
Luffy! Shanks shouted off as soon as he found the closest entrance to the island jungle. He had hoped that the little boy would have heard him. Yet Shanks picked up a cauldron full of despair, and that worried him something terrible. So much that Shanks didn't even bother to wait for a response and got back to sprinting into the jungle. On the way over, the jungle stank of garbage and sewage spilled over the trees and shrubbery. Not to mention that Shanks had to step on the bodies of wolves, boars, tigers and even the birds on the way to Luffy. The young captain didn't even notice that his crew failed to follow and most likely got lost in the jungle. And finally, Luffy. Shanks found the boy in question. It was a terrible sight. The boy, once full with life and a loud voice, was on the ground in a ball and the ground stained with tears. Luffy, are you hurt? Shanks approached Luffy and the boy finally twitched his ear yet didn't even show his face. Shanks, that little, broken voice had shattered Shanks' carefree boy crawled in retreat. No, I am hearing things. Shanks can't be back. When Luffy hit a tree, he fell back into position. We made a promise and I am not even on the sea yet. Luffy, it's okay. Shanks never saw himself to consult a scared kid, but now was not the time to be picky, and when he tried to reach out to Luffy, off MPH, an impact came out of the little kid's fist that actually sent him flying a good few meters. That didn't leave a bruise, but Shanks felt that for real. Yet it was not the time to dwell on that while Luffy was still frightened. You are not in danger. Luffy, your friends are here, we can help. Who will want to be friends with a monster? Why would anyone want to be my friend after I killed them? Luffy shouted off and Shanks widened his eyes a bit before taking a good sense of the denizens on the island. No Luffy, they are not dead. You didn't kill anyone. Once again, Luffy tried to snap back at Shanks. They are dead. And it's all my fault. And Shanks got a bit impatient with the little progress he was making and pressed his right fingers against Luffy's head. A neat little gimmick that Shanks learned on the seas was how to share senses with another for a brief time. Yet that was enough to have Luffy sense that he was wrong. No one got killed. But. We are here, Luffy, because we learned what that fruit really was and you need our help. Shanks saw that it was time to explain why he returned to the East Blue. You have a lot more power than being completely rubber. A lot more, and it is very dangerous. But we can still help you, please Luffy. Luffy didn't answer this time nor respond, which almost worried Shanks again. But after a passing moment, can you guys forgive me? Shanks didn't want to interrupt and said nothing. Going with you will be to break a promise between men, and men don't break their promises, right Shanks? For a moment, the pirate captain wanted to say something to that until it let itself out of his lips. Real men don't abandon their friends either. Once Shanks said those words, something happened that was hard to explain. It was like the words had been hiding and waiting for this moment to emerge. It was just the thing for Shanks to teach Luffy, and also the one thing that the latter needed to hear from the former. I am your friend. Shanks couldn't believe that Luffy responded like that, as if the kid didn't have a friend before. But all I did was bug you and you just laugh at me in the pub. I am just an annoyance. And before Luffy could say another word, he was surprised when a single arm engulfed him. Somehow, one arm had the strength of a full hug and by Shanks. Yes, you are my friend, and since I caused this to happen, I am going to correct it. Stubborn as a man can be, Shanks finally got up and forced Luffy to drape over his shoulder. And if you have a problem, then you can try to escape. By the time the red-hair pirates had finally found their captain, they saw the little anchor childishly pound his little fists on Shanks' shoulder. Flashback ends. XXXXX, is that why you refused to give up on us? Zoro asked once Luffy halted in his story. Because Shanks didn't, several members of the crew remembered how they thought Luffy to be either stubborn, foolish, or both to not let them go and even invite them on his ship. He was my hero as a child. Among the many things I want, some I already have, expertly, he sent notices to his crew before sending a different one to Nami and Robin, who blushed a bit before continuing. I want to be a pirate that Shanks will be proud to know and call his friend and maybe an equal. This time, Garp did not protest because technically his grandson was not talking of being a pirate but a person instead, like the red-hair brat. What happened after that, big brother? Chopper walked up and rested his cute little head on Luffy's kneecap in a way that made most of the audience want to coo at. Luffy himself was no different. When Shanks got back with his crew, he had to make sure that no one will figure out that I have left the island a decade early. Luffy spoke and some of his crew were starting to understand. They more or less had me learn to use my secondary powers to cast a spell over the island to force them to believe that I truly never left Dawn Island. Even a kid could see that skepticism was brewing among the audience, so Luffy added, as much as I wanted to laugh, protest, or both in that order, the guys weren't going to hear it. It really wasn't worth the welts, either. Judging from the still forlorn expression, everyone else could only imagine how bad it was. Thankfully, it only took a day short of a week when I got it down to the point that I could do it in my sleep. That was when the red-hair pirates sailed off with a cabin boy and apprentice to teach. Luffy continued. From my home island and past Logia Town, up and down Reverse Mountain, they took me through paradise. That was where I learned how dangerous it was, how recklessness can lead to suicide on those unpredictable waters. Many heads started to nod at how true that was. And here is the part that you may or may not believe, but Shanks took me to the New World to train me. He was right, there was barely anyone that did believe him. Garp now wants to find Shanks and strangle the red-hair brat. Even more. Training was hell. They made sure that I only ate the least and slept the least. If I was caught doing either one more, they will double my training. It took a whole week to finally get it down and their punishment stuck to me. Luffy continued and was completely aware of his crew shivering from how their own training will be bone-breaking, and their captain still found a way to make it worse when they upset him. They taught me how to sail, how to use a sword, use a firearm, and especially how to use my Akuma no Mi powers. That last one was why they even came back to the Grand Line. Because they finally learned that my devil fruit was actually a prototype hybrid that was considered a failure by the creator, Vegapunk. Luffy went on, and that name got everyone's attention. For those who haven't heard, Dr. Vegapunk is known as the most brilliant mind in the world. His research, his knowledge and advances in science has caused the world government to employ him. He still wishes to uncover the secret to all Akuma no Mi and maybe find a way to grant an eater a secondary Akuma no Mi power without the danger of overload that is lethal without a doubt. So, I guess that red hair stole that hybrid. Garp wanted to speak up and Luffy nodded. Pirates still love to loot, and the red hair pirates need to scratch the itch sometimes. This time, nobody had a response to that statement, not even Chopper or Isa. The hybrid Akuma no Mi supposedly was to be taken to an unknown location, probably to just be savaged before disposed. They just didn't count on pirates to find them first and steal their cargo that included the rejected hybrid. After realizing what it was, they planned to sell it until a certain local boy ate it. So why did you go back to the East Blue? Why not stay in the New World? Chopper asked in a voice only an innocent child can make. Because I didn't plan keeping everyone back home under my spell forever. My role model and idol risked the Marines to find me at my bleakest and also risked having me aboard to help fix my problem. Luffy spoke with the maturity of age and experience. I only jumped ship when I was confident that I had mastered my Akuma no Mi and I needed to be back for my brothers. Both Ace and everyone from the port town never screamed so loud in their lives when I had to tell them that they spent 3 whole years under the illusion that I never left the island. I had to listen to my ears ring for a solid week. Now that was something the audience could picture and they could sympathize with Luffy a little. And good thing, because Luffy's mood dropped as well as the atmosphere. And I am sorry guys, but this is only between me, my crew and my grand the Marines, with a sickening sweet smile that was thought only possible on a woman's face, right before all of them but Garp fell to the ground while foaming at the mouth. Seriously, I was expecting more resistance than all that. His grandfather could only growl and rub his eyebrows. I get it, brat. I will fix the problem later. With that said, Garp released his fingers from his face. Now what is so important anyways? With a grimly serious look on, Luffy answered. The true name and true nature of the other Akuma no Mi. And I am sorry guys, but this is only between me, my crew and my grandpa. Luffy turned to the Marines with a sickening sweet smile that was thought only possible on a woman's face. Right before all of them but Garp fell to the ground while foaming at the mouth. Seriously, I was expecting more resistance than all that. His grandfather could only growl and rub his eyebrows. I get it, brat. I will fix the problem later. With that said, Garp released his fingers from his face. Now what is so important anyways? With a grimly serious look on, Luffy answered. The true name and true nature of the other Akuma no Mi. Silence fills the room, with everyone still conscious now gripping the edge of their seats. Well, Garp broke the ice of course. Out with it, what's the big deal about some name? Mutters of agreement were heard while some were of concern. The name will sound ridiculous but its power makes my other Akuma no Mi, devil fruit, ability sound like a bottled up plague. Luffy spoke up for what felt like an eternity and his answer silenced his audience once again. I could only think of the name of sake sake no Mi. Liquor fruit. At that moment, the audience looked like they were cheated out of a good joke as they seemed more annoyed than amused, at all. Yeah, you're right, that does sound stupid. Zoro spoke up and as much as he wanted to say what he really thought, there were innocent ears among the audience. And he already had his fair share of welts for almost cursing in front of children. Which does not help that you seemed so. Suddenly the unmistakable smell of strong alcohol filled the air. While most of the pirates, including Garp, tried to hold it in with a hand to their nose, the rest weren't that ready. Especially not Chopper nor Isa who almost puked on the floor. What is this? Zoro croaked out into the smell that seemed solid enough to swallow. The power to conjure up the properties of alcohol, liquor, wine, beer and sake. Far more dangerous than just making everyone around you drunk while making you immune to it. Luffy answered and when everyone gave their undivided attention, they saw what could only be fumes emerging from his dominant right hand. This is the true nature of my second Akuma no Mi. This almost killed every living being on my home island when I first awoke it. Can you list something as dangerous as causing something known as alcohol poisoning, instantly? For once, neither Chopper or Isa asked what the term meant. They were too busy trying to swallow what was trying to escape their stomachs via their mouths. Everyone else just gathered their bearings when the smell died down immediately after Luffy cancelled out the flumes in his hand. Be glad that this was only strong enough to make one so sick that they have no strength to fight. Luffy said, finally standing U from his seat to help up both Nami and Robin back to their feet. He should be glad that they were still too ill and slightly scared to even be angry to be included in the demonstration. Finally, the captain said, at the time I thought it was just a failed prototype but now I think that Vegapunk didn't want anyone to have such a dangerous, man-made Akuma no Mi. He still couldn't count on it getting stolen instead of destroyed. This somehow made the heavy atmosphere even worse and Garp spoke up once again. So, why are you telling me this, Luffy? The old man spoke in a kinder tone more appropriate for a concerned grandfather that he actually is. Because while you have abused me and tried to make me a carbon copy of you, you did do the one thing that my no-good father never did. Luffy answered with confidence and without hesitation. The underlying message had reached the old man's head and his heart, for some reason, started to beat a little faster. I know who he is. I know what his deal is. I just don't care what he does and what he is going to do next. Dragon is just another criminal that I can live without. Garp felt a bit sad that his grandson is fully aware of his absent father but he still felt a little happy and proud that Luffy has no intention of being the same scum as Dragon is. Now, how about we start over and have a real short family reunion? Luffy's mood perked up and pointed to the food on the table that were still fresh despite the power show earlier. Their answer was not one but two stomachs growling worse than grumpy bears. XXXXX. No kidding Gramps. You rode tigers with arms full with treasure when you were a kid. Luffy spoke to his old man as if the two of them were drinking buddies having a night out after a hard week of work. You were lucky. You beat up tigers while we three could only do crocodiles. While those two were talking up a storm while stuffing their faces, everyone else were acting like the floor is covered with eggshells. One wrong step and increased training would be like mercy. I wish that I didn't go overboard and crack all the skulls of the tigers, then you would have had some real fun. Garp responded with a jolly voice followed by a wholehearty laugh. Too bad that nobody, especially not Luffy, found this to be funny. But back to business, Garp had a serious look, even when he stuffed and swallowed a whole plate of meat down his throat. Be glad that your little friends dug up something that was bigger even than your stunt or else they would have kicked you out of the Shichibuki, 7 pirate warlords, ranks. Right when they had found a replacement for that scared brat crocodile. Good to know, and that is because I still need to breed a pair of new crewmates for the new world. Luffy responded and then, out of the blue, grabbed his Gramps by the throat and put the old man in a headlock. His crew flinched and hoped that Garp won't get too angry about it. And Garp did get annoyed until Luffy whispered something too soft to make out, but the expression on the old man's face had piqued their interest. In that case, another shocker today was the undeterred and carefree Garp took a stuttering spell. Just carry on and I won't stop you. I am out of here with my kitties. Have fun, Luffy. In a flash and a smoke trail left in the room, the Straw Hats were baffled that the hero of the Marines had fled and took all of his Marines somehow in just one stroke. Just what did Luffy say? Was the collective thought in the whole room, but one look at the captain made them decide not to ask. They had seen Luffy angry before and he can be a bit sadistic should he feel it appropriate. Besides, the smirk on his face was telling them, don't ruin my moment. Then, once again, the ice was broken when a certain group wearing cannonballs barged in. Straw Hat, Big Brother is done with your new ship. Luffy smiled so strong that his face was almost as bright as the sun. The Straw Hat pirates were glad that their captain was still in a good mood. XXXXX, I mean it, Captain, Kuro stated while walking leisurely besides Luffy, on the other side to the girls of course. Hawkeye himself taught you swordplay while you were still with Shanks? When were you going to tell us? It was just visiting and tips, on good word between two long-term rivals. Luffy answered in a huff. Shanks and his men taught me how to fight. Not even Zoro can call Mahawk on training me. He just knows me as the little kid that won't leave him alone until I saw him in action. And now he acts all soft with the same little scamp. Luffy made a smile that only an old man could do while looking back on how things have changed so fast. Everyone else had nothing to say as they somehow feel what their captain is right then. Especially since they were going to get a huge Christmas present, real early. Apparently, while the Straw Hats were at Enies' lobby, Iceberg had placed in an order at the black market at St. Polar for several tons of atom wood. It helped that Luffy was generous with the golden pillar that was worth more than a dozen kings' ransom. And during the time Garp and his squad spent with the Straw Hats afterwards, Franky got to work on the shipment to subtract between him and Luffy. What the cyborg didn't see coming was the mayor himself as well as a few of the shipbuilders that included the trio who greeted the Straw Hats when they first arrived. With their specialties and hard work with little to no breaks, Franky had finally built his dream ship. Right now, it is concealed by a large white blanket for the sake of surprising clients. Iceberg was standing proud right in front while his carpenters, including Kokura and her daughter, stood by the sidelines. Welcome Straw Hats. I am pleased to announce that your order has been fulfilled. While most of the pirates were super excited to see what is underneath the white veil, Luffy on the other hand. I did place an order for a new ship at your shipyard, however I definitely remember asking a certain someone to craft it. The captain spoke in a neutral tone, with his eyes slowly darting around the yard. Yet I don't see him. Where will he be to miss out on this ship being unveiled? Iceberg sighed and rubbed his head. Franky is as stubborn as they come and wanted to stay with his crowd of bounty hunters and dismantlers. Iceberg didn't need to say more when he saw a certain smirk on Luffy's face. Try not to make him throw up too much. Too late. Luffy responded and in that split second, he was suddenly covered in steam and holding a cyborg in a speedo with his hand. And poor Franky looked he was sucked in through something before he could even think. Too bad that he got a bad landing on the rubble, trying to catch his breath. Straw Hat. Franky looked up and screamed at the naughty-looking young captain. Then the cyborg took a quick look at the ground, and found something truly unbelievable, even in paradise. He seriously left that spot to swipe me from the other side of the island and landed back exactly. Come on. I made you a new ship and I have places to be. Franky got back up and was about to walk away when he felt a hand on his shoulder. The cyborg didn't even bother to look behind. Sorry Franky, but that is not what Tom would have wanted. Luffy spoke and Franky tried to no avail to wrench himself out of the captain's grip. You call yourself a gang boss, a thief, a dismantler and a criminal. But you are a shipbuilder, a carpenter, an inventor and a mechanic. And no mechanic just makes something without wanting to maintain it, fix what breaks and repair what fails. What you are doing wouldn't help anyone, so stop running away. The whole time that Luffy talked down the cyborg in a speedo, nobody spoke a word. It was like the same thought came through their heads. To not interrupt the talk between men. Now tell me what Tom would have wanted. Luffy finished with a request while Franky could just cry like a drama queen. Why do you care so much about my troubles? Rather than a direct answer, Franky asked his own question. He still doesn't know whether to let everyone present to hear what he really wants. Because you have a dream, one that was born when Tom took you in when your parents cast you out. We have a dream we set out to complete or die trying. Luffy answered. Now tell us yours. For the longest time, Franky was silent yet everyone waited patiently. I want, the cyborg whispered until he spoke up, to build a ship to rival the pirate kings and see it reach the end of the world. Can I do it? Luffy was silent this time and instead faced his crew and the cyborg did the same. We can't answer that. Zoro spoke first before Sanji went next. You will have to decide that, and to top it off. But you don't have to do it alone. Not with his fellow dreamers. Kuro spoke up, completely different from when he first met the crew back in the East Blue. And Franky took this in strife. Fine. You wanted this stupid dreamer in your gang, then you got one. I am Franky the shipwright. What's broken? I will fix it. You got a problem with that? That was loud enough to echo throughout the island, but nobody minded. It was actually nice to see a man that was considered to be boss of scum and a public menace actually get his mojo back. Now that we have that sorted out, Let's see the new ship. Your masterpiece if you prefer, Franky. Luffy spoke up and his crew got excited all over again. This time, Franky walked up right in front of the white veil where Iceberg had been waiting the whole time. With a hand from each on the veil, they pulled with their might to reveal the ship underneath. It truly was a sight to behold. The size was that of a cargo ship combined with a battleship. It was about a mile long and a half a mile wide. The hull was white and looked sturdy and had what appeared to be a large hatch that was big enough for a caravel to fit in. There were over 50 smaller hatches that looked to conceal cannons. At the rear were a pair of dome-shaped cabins and what appears to be a garden laid out outside. There was also a large contraption that resembled the mouth of a cannon. Finally, the figurehead was that of a large lion with its entire mane taking on the shape of a pinwheel. 2. And I call this ship, the Grand King's Brew.